Plan Commission meeting for February 16th, 2022. Sam, roll call, please.
Bhatia?
Here.
Meyer?
Here.
Driver?
Here.
Hewitt?
Here.
Van Beckham?
Here.
Poznowski?
Here.
All right, next on the list is approval of the meeting minutes from December 15th, 2021.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 15th, 2021?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? No, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is Ordinance 06-2022, amending the Code of Ordinances for the Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, Division 9450, Performance Standards. Sam.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a proposed ordinance we talked about last in December. This is more or less the final draft for you all. What it does is effectively establishes two new zoning districts in the village. One would be Lowland Resource Conservancy, which are wetlands, effectively prohibiting certain types of development within wetland areas where we don't have those protections currently. And then two, Upland Resource Conservancy, which are woodlands, probably the more important half of the things. Wetlands are typically oftentimes found at floodplains or have other, state protections or things involved.
Excuse me, Sam, did you jump to B or A? Are we doing A first? A. Because you're talking wetlands, and I thought we were talking noise and. Oh, performance standards. Yeah, I think you jumped over.
Oh,
performance
sorry.
standards. I'm sorry, didn't mean
We
to
can
interrupt.
take
I'm
it if you
looking
wanna-
at,
If you want to continue on, you've already started, we can do that.
yeah, sure, might as well.
Yep.
So, sorry, I got out of order. Thanks, Tom. So conservancy districts, wetlands included, woodlands, probably the more important half of the section, which establishes some restrictions for development in woodland areas that we've identified on our Parks and Open Space Plan that are valuable for zoning protection, but perhaps not valuable enough that the village is going to go purchase those through park impact fees or some other thing. So it's kind of that middle ground of us trying to protect some nature, but still allow some private development in those areas. So for instance, you'll see in towards the end of the ordinance, there are some density limits for residential development within the woodland areas. It's generally 1 unit per 5 acre type protection there. So I can answer any questions regarding that specific ordinance for conservancy districts. The reason why we move forward to adopt these standards is because it is an objective in our Parks and Open Space Plan that the village board adopted. So thought we'd get on it right away and try to get these up in. And then once this ordinance is recommended by you all and adopted by the village board, then we'll move forward with the mapping side of the equation to get the proper areas protected. Any questions on conservancy districts?
I just have the one question. In the table, it's listed as maximum building coverage 2.5%. Is that correct?
It is, because that's a minimum lot acre, lot area of 5 acres, so it's 2.5% of a 5 acre lot. We didn't want to allow for like large outbuildings or something in an area that's protected via conservancy, because the idea is you're protecting the woodlands that are existing there. So we thought that 2.5% is, probably going to be.
What does that come out to square feet real quick for me? Thanks.
Let me pull up the calculator.
Yeah.
About 5,500, just under 5,500 square feet. So we figured that'd be enough for a garage and a fairly sizable house, perhaps an outbuilding in total.
Just to add that, like, you could utilize height. I mean, that would just be the ground floor area, but you could utilize height if it was otherwise available in that zoning district. So
Yep.
the point is to preserve as much as open green space as possible.
Is it going to have some restrictions like the RE district does in regards to house size or not?
We currently do not have any minimum house sizes for those districts because, again, the whole purpose of it is to keep the minimum impact possible. So if someone wants to put, really, this is an area where the village is saying the protection of the environmental resource is more important than the potential taxable value, which is different than the RE district, which wouldn't have the same environmental resources, so we want to maximize the taxable value. So if someone wanted to build a tiny home on one of these lots, we're effectively getting zero taxes on it anyway, so it almost doesn't matter from a fiscal standpoint. So that was our thinking, at least in crafting the ordinance, is that these are the only zoning districts where we are like minimizing the fiscal impact and maximizing that environmental protection.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Sam or staff?
This will be about 600 acres when it's all said and done of areas adopted into this. More or less, we have to do the final mapping. A large portion that's already in things like floodplains or previously delineated wetlands. So the woodlands aspect of it, while probably the most important, is also kind of the smaller of the two protected areas.
Okay. We have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve ordinance 07-2022, adding articles 90-155, conservancy districts to the Code of Ordinances, Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Questions? Any public comment on this? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we'll go to performance standards.
All right, performance standards. So this is largely a rule cleanup. A lot of our performance standards were rolled over whole cloth from the old zoning code in 2020. So we thought it high time to kind of clean up this individual section, although it's not one that we often deal with. So starting from the top, we have just let me scroll up here. Areas where we referred to the correct section in the state code, for instance, regarding air pollution, or internally, we had set some odd language regarding fire protection and prevention, and instead I just removed all that language and said, refer to the fire section of the code, because that's really what's governing anyways. So cleanups like that. Same with glare and heat. For glare, we just referred to the new outdoor lighting section that you guys just approved the other month. So trying to not double up ordinances and clean up those inconsistencies. Water quality didn't change a whole lot. Noise is probably the section that changed the most in terms of language, but effectively the standards didn't change at all. So the numbers in the tables, the actual noise limits, did not change. What did change was effectively the administration of the section. There was a separate section of the code that also dealt with noise, and so we just all unified it under the zoning code. So we thought that was the right place for it to live. And what it does is grant noise limits. Generally, the PD enforces these because oftentimes noise limits are after hours when normal staff aren't here. Keeps a lot of the same limitations of noise. So, things have to be shielded. You can't purposely, play things at a really high frequency or beat duration or things like that. That was rolled over. You have to have a functioning muffler. That was rolled over. PD specifically can enforce this section, which they can enforce any section, but because they're the most common ones, we included that. And then in exempt activities, previously, a lot of these applications, an applicant had to make a specific request, and it went to the village administrator. What we did is broaden that, and then oftentimes it went to the village board, depending on the nature of the request. What we did here is try to unify those appeals procedures. So now myself, Tony as Public Works Director, or the village administrator may exempt work which is necessary to promote public health or welfare, such as roadway or utility construction. They have to submit a plan detailing the duration of the requested exemption, reasons why, steps taken to keep noise at lowest level practical level, and they can't last more than 3 months or the duration of the project, whichever is shorter. The village clerk shall keep all those plans on file. So this is really to free up for minor construction activities that might run overnight. For instance, if you're boring a water main under a roadway and you have to shut down the roadway, oftentimes that work happens at night. And it often comes up unexpectedly. So Tony will have the ability to approve those types of requests as long as they include all of that in the plan. If someone is upset with those requests, This is in the zoning code, so they would just file a motion to the zoning board of appeals. And then finally, regarding odors, radioactivity, and vibrations, those all largely stayed the same and just referenced the proper sections of the code.
Great. Questions? Yes.
I have a couple of questions for you, Sam. Just so I understand, my questions relate to the noise.
Yep.
At the bottom of the page were sub-paragraph C. So these specified objectively measurable limits apply to every district except BP or M. So everybody's subject to table 90-450-3.
Except BP and M districts, which have the table above and have slightly looser noise restrictions.
So this bottom table would apply to backyard parties, church festivals, everybody else then?
Yep.
Okay.
Generally, noise limits are measured at the lot line.
Now, jumping to the top of the page, your paragraph A, this more of a general description of what's troublesome noise. This would apply to everybody and in addition to the two tables?
Correct. So that's the thing that's generally limiting construction activities to that 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's the current standard, so that didn't change at all. So we wanted to set the baseline of you're good to go during these hours. When you go later is the sub-paragraph that I just described about, submitting a plan to Tony, myself, or the administrator. And then the individual tables set the limit at the lot line for all the zoning districts.
All right. I read this provision as the way you just say. It might have been a little helpful to have some express language that says paragraph A applies even if paragraph B and C aren't violated. A still is applicable.
Okay, sounds good.
The other thing
take
is,
that out.
I know it's hard to describe noise, obnoxious noise, and I know that somebody's made a good effort here. It's just inherently a little vague. What is noise that, quote, tends to annoy a neighbor? It's pretty loosey-goosey, and I particularly don't like the word tends to. I mean, either it's annoying somebody or it's not. The fact that it might annoy them, it just adds a layer of vagueness to it.
Yeah,
And-
that language is from the previous code. I didn't change any of that at all. So that's just a circumstance where the PD ends up using their best judgment more often than not.
Yeah, and in the rest of this paragraph talks about tends to annoy the neighbor. So the way this gets applied is to measure it almost through the perspective and eyes of the neighbor, not through anything objective. So if you're doing something that tends to annoy me, I'm the neighbor, I get to decide that you're obnoxiously loud.
Sure, but then again, the PD doesn't have to write a ticket if they disagree. So they do have some discretion, just like a speeding violation or anything else, They don't pull over everyone who's going 5 over. So it's, that, like you said, it's really hard to write kind of nuisance code violations because it's all in the eye of the beholder, or the ear of the beholder in this case, so.
Certainly, if there was some great language that I knew, I'd give it to you, but
I
I'm okay
did
with
double
this.
check
I'm
other
just-
codes. I didn't,
Right.
take ours just for granted. So I looked at noise limits that were set by most of our adjacent municipalities, whether it's Caledonia, southern Milwaukee County, or our neighbors to the south in Kenosha County. They're all generally in the same limit. Ours weren't out of character for the limits that they set. Everyone has it written a bit differently, but it all basically gets to the same point.
All right, I'm in favor of this. I just wish it was tighter. What you can do, of course, is make this part of Robin's job description.
I'll make sure to shuffle that out over to him.
I have nothing else.
All right. Any other questions? Any public comment on this? Okay, then if there's a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the amending Code of Ordinance for Division 90-415 Performance Standards, Ordinance 06-2022.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Tom. All right, next will be Ordinance 08-2022, amending the Code of Ordinances, Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, Chapter 74, Land Division.
So, this is back at you guys. I know we talked about this a few times over the past year. It went to Public Works Committee, and lived there for a few months as we had some back and forth, and finally they approved it, so it's now back to you before it goes to the village board. The village last revised its land division or subdivision ordinances in 2016 relating to stormwater. Last made major revisions to the chapter in 1993, so it's well due. These ordinances control major land divisions, which are typically on plats, and minor land divisions, which are certified survey maps or CSMs. Also, condominium plats. The ordinances also contain application procedures for each type of division, design standards that applicants must follow, the improvements the village requires within each land division, the required construction process, and the fees applicants pay. The village based these ordinances off of model ordinances, which the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, or Sewer PAC, previously updated in 2001 and 2018. The updated ordinances utilize a 2018 Sewer PAC model ordinance, updated state and village engineering requirements, and updated village zoning ordinances. These updates reflect updated changes to state law regarding application timelines, submission procedures to DOA, that's the Wisconsin Department of Administration, and public park impact fee considerations. They also increased the number of non-single-family lots allowed on a CSM and better reference the related zoning and engineering ordinances. Some other highlights include more thorough preliminary platting requirements, including more robust environmental features reporting, better defined and more flexible street design standards based on anticipated traffic flows, and landscaping requirements. The village staff also recommend moving 74-233, that's post-construction stormwater management, 74-234, construction site erosion and settlement control, to a new Article 2 in Chapter 83, which is about stormwater management, titled Construction. This move keeps the updated land division ordinance solely related to land division topics and unifies the stormwater requirements of the village within one chapter for stormwater. With that, we recommend approval of Ordinance 8-2022 to the village board. I can run through any specific questions. I know it's been a little while, but we've given you general updates on this. The things I highlighted are probably the most important changes to it. A lot of this, our old code was based also off a sewer pack model ordinance, so a lot of the language didn't really change in meaning. It was just some cleaned up language. Really the big sections to highlight are those new road standards and the cleaned up application timelines, submission procedures, things like that, as well as the public park impact fee considerations. So with that, hopefully we allow that, or hopefully this ordinance allows people who are subdividing property and creating new residential lots to have some more flexible rules that are a little bit more clear cut in what they need to provide to the village, but it's kind of part and parcel with our new zoning code and trying to encourage, or at least get out of the way of residential developers, allow them to cook and create some creative subdivisions and lots and layouts, but set some minimum standards of the things that are truly important to the village.
Yes.
The only question I have is section 10.5, public park site fee. I'm assuming that means impact fees, correct?
It does.
No, we used to, at least I thought, we used to collect when building permits are pulled. It says here that they're actually gonna start collecting when the final plat is approved. According to what's written there, that's.
Can you point to the individual section, Joe? Sorry.
10.5, public park site fee.
In,
It's way, 2/3 of the way back on this packet here. It doesn't have a page number.
Under fees?
Yeah, under
10.5.
fees, 10.5.
oh, I see. Good catch. We'll clarify that before it makes it to the village board. Generally, we require those on, like you said, on pulling a building permit. So
Okay, I was just
I'll make
curious.
that clarification.
Thank you.
Good catch.
Dave said one question.
Yes, go ahead, Don.
Sam, to the extent these are based upon the 2018 sewer pack model ordinance, do you have any feel or feedback? Obviously, other municipalities have adopted similar land divisions based upon the sewer pack model.
Yeah, I'd say
How is
most
this-
of them do.
How has the sewer pack model fared in actual use? Have you heard that it's performing well with with other communities that have adopted it?
Yeah, I haven't heard any major complaints, because everyone basically follows the same procedures, which are more or less governed by state law a lot of the time. We're all kind of in the same starting boat. I think the only thing that really would set this one apart is for those CSM non-residential lot subdivisions, which would help keep our business park developers a little bit more flexible and keep them out of the platting process. I think we talked about that last time we were here, but when you're cutting off 20-acre, 30-acre lots cumulatively as a business park, they're often thinking about detention just due to the amount of impervious area as it is. So this is helping us use kind of the more simple land division procedures for those types of developments while keeping residential plats where you might have 30 to 100 owners or whatever have to go through the more thorough process. So
Thanks.
that'll set us apart. And then the zoning code is really where the rubber hits the road. I mean, this is really just about cutting up the land, but the difference between communities is largely through their zoning code and minimum lot sizes and things like that. So we've already had those discussions, but I think that our zoning code will separate us more from other communities than these specific procedures.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval, the village staff recommend that the Plan Commission move to recommend approval of Ordinance 08-2022, amending the Code of Ordinances, Village of Mount Pleasant, Chapter 74, Land Division.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions or concerns? Any public comment on this? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next will be Campus Park Phase 2 pre-bid presentation.
All right, I'm going to stop talking for a second and turn it over to our friends from Hitchcock Design Group in Featherstone to present on the Phase 2 Campus Park pre-bid construction plans.
Great. Thank you, Sam.
All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Steve Connors. I'm a managing principal at Hitchcock Design Group. Been working with Lacey Lawrence, who's been our project manager for this. I believe she was before you last time this was presented. So that was sort of the preliminary planning. Now we're kind of going to final planning. We're a little bit over a week away from being prepared to go out to bid, and Tom with Featherstone will talk a little bit more about that toward the end of the presentation. But what we've got for you tonight is we're just going to go a little bit over sort of where we were from the last time with the plan, what advancements have been made, and some of the decisions that are being made with that, and kind of give you a little bit of a highlight overview of all those different improvements that we've got planned for Campus Park here. Oh, let me go the other way. How do I get into this presentation here? Excellent. Perfect. Thank you. So, as everybody's aware of the project limits here, we're talking about Campus Park, which is just across from Campus Drive from this facility here. You'll see the red outline, well, that's the main limits of the park that we were originally looking at with the master plan. When we get into the final design discussion, that the project is actually going to expand a little bit to the north because we're looking to do an alternate bid with the Smolinski Trail connection, which was some plans that were prepared by a prior consultant, but will be incorporated into this particular project to see if bids allow for that portion to be constructed. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail here going forward. Sorry. Okay. And so this is a plan that was before you last time. And so you'll see it's basically the same. We're carrying forward all the same amenities to the northeast. It's primarily the sports fields with soccer and cricket. As we work our way sort of southwest, we work ourselves to sort of a couple of baseball fields and finally into sort of a core area, which is sort of the oval space, which is your primary event space, kind of anchored to the southeast of that oval with a sort of a band shell, concession, and restroom structure. And then as we kind of continue to the southeast corner of that, we're working with some of the existing improvements there now, such as your pickleball courts and your playground. But we're building upon that playground area, creating a little bit more family value there with a little bit of a small shade structure and shelter. and a splash pad that gets added to that area as well. You can see to the east of the existing pickleball courts, there is room that's being allowed for pickle court expansion in the future, should that ever be needed. And of course, we're working with your existing parking lot structure and pond structure, representing that the master plan does show an opportunity for sort of a large fishing pier structure into the pond, another shelter just to the north of the pond as well. And then as we kind of continue sort of along in that sort of counterclockwise direction, further north of the pond are a couple basketball courts. You'll see one is sort of a colored one and one's just sort of dashed with the intent again that the base project would be constructing one court and there would be an alternate bid, which we'll talk about further for that secondary court. But as we've kind of moved forward from those plans, we're going to the final plan. We're basically what's before you in this presentation we called 85% construction documents. So obviously we've still been working with the team throughout the course of this week to get those to 100% level for bid, just some additional details and specifications being worked out. But for the most part, what you're going to see in these plans here today are the final design for the geometry, the amenities, the layout, and the materials and the planting. So this is the overall sheet. We're going to zoom in on a couple areas for you specifically, but just to kind of give you the high level overview, those sort of dark gray paths are your main trail systems that are around the perimeter. And then as we work ourselves into the space, we get into some more concrete paths and some other amenities as well. So from there, we'll kind of go through each of these sections for you. So first, that sort of lower southwest section there, you can see that we've got that we talked about the core space and the oval event lawn. We've got an enlargement and some images we'll show you of that concession building and what the aesthetic of that is, along with a floor plan layout. And then you can see, as we talked about, your existing playground there to the south, just to the bottom of the screen. Just north of that is the new shelter. The existing shelter that's there now is going to be relocated just adjacent to the pickleball courts. So that way the shade structure will be repurposed for that, and a little bit of a larger structure will be placed in for the playground splash pad area, assuming that that might see a little bit higher activity and a need for more shade space. The splash pad there, we'll have some images to show you exactly what that's going to look like as well as we move forward through this. The upper area there, again, that northeast corner, again, is going to be primarily just open turf space to account for 2 soccer fields that are overlaid with a cricket field. The cricket pitch itself is going to be one of the items when we talk about the budget that is an alternate bid. There's an opportunity that might have some other groups that could fund that for you. So that will be bid out to see if that's something, whether or not that's allowed to be fit within your budget, and if there's any alternate funding that becomes available for that as well. Working our way a little bit south here, then you see, we've got the 2 basketball courts. Again, one of those will be in the base project bid and one will be an alternate bid, and giving you a little bit of flexibility for how bids come in, whether or not you can afford that second court. But the space will always be there should you want to add it in the future if you can't afford to add it in this particular phase. And then working a little bit further south, you see another sort of a large shelter position just off the pond to be a little bit more of a passive use for picnicking, maybe some group events that can take place there and be a programmed and rentable shelter at the same time. Just to the left of that, you'll see that there's a little concrete walk that sort of spurs north off the gray asphalt walk. That's that art walk we talked about. So there's 3 nodes along there that'll have seating and places for art, along with some power facilities as well. We'll talk a little bit more about the electrical and the lighting in a minute here. This is an overview of the planting plan. So the different shades and hatching kind of give you an idea of the limits of, obviously you've got a lot of no-mow area out there now. So the intent is most of the space that will be unused for public amenities or sports fields will be reinstated or restored to that type of same no-mow facility. So that's sort of that little bit of diagonal darker hatch that you see that surrounds the soccer fields and is in between the soccer and the baseball. That's meant to continue to be sort of that no-mow and native vegetation area. The lighter areas obviously are meant to be more of a mown turf. And you can see that we're focusing the planting and the landscaping on the areas where people are going to congregate the most. And we're going to zoom in on a couple of those spaces as well. So coming to that main event and family area, you can see that we've got several shade trees kind of ringed around the event space. Some other shade trees starting to be grouped around the playground and the concession area, along with some of the existing trees that you have out there now. From a lighting perspective, There will be lighting in the base project for all the shelters, and there will be an alternate bid to do some event lighting around the loop, this oval loop. As far as sport field lighting, if you'd want to add that in the future, or any additional parking lot or pathway lighting, that would be something that would be a future component that's not in this project at this point in time. So right now, we're really just sticking lighting to the concession area, the band shell, shelters, and an alternate bid for that event space, with some power bollards in some key areas, such as at the top of that oval space, an area where you're intended to be able to sort of do food trucks during events. So we'll make sure there's some power bollards there for those trucks to plug into as well. Going around these other areas, you can just see some minor landscaping, some shade trees, and some other lower ornamental plantings and perennials and shrubs, kind of again in those key spaces where the art nodes are at in the upper left, and near the shelter areas to provide some accent planting in those spaces. But again, while we're trying to provide some accent planting, trying to make sure that we're not overplanting this to kind of keep maintenance needs down at the same time. Now to go through a few of the product selections here. So you can see that's your existing shelter in the lower right. And so the other shelters are going to be the same, just different size, but same type of materials. There'll be metal in their structure regarding the posts and the framing, the glue lam beams, and the metal roofing with the tongue and groove decking. So we're going to kind of keep that consistent look amongst all the new shelters with the existing shelter. This is a layout and a enlargement of the spray pad area. So you can just see the quantity of spray amenities that there are on that area. And we've got a little bit of a better graphic that represents how these features look. So you can see a lot of these are what we call ground jet components. There's overhead components as well, but you know, we get a little bit more, you get a little bit more value for your dollar with some of these as a ground jet components. And we found in our experience too that kids kind of tend to really sort of go toward these ground spray elements as well. So then the way that this system will work is that it'll be fully operational and controlled by you guys as far as being able to set the timing for the time of day that it's available, the time of year it's available, whether it's weekdays or weeknights, and you can change that from season to season to help control the operations of the water flow. What will be there is these things now have components where you can see in the upper left corner of the image where there's an area that a child will sort of hit an activation button, and that activates all the spray components, and they come on for a timed amount that you guys set. So it's not like something that someone can start the water running and then go away and it keeps running. So it's a very controlled type of spray facility here.
Excuse me, is
Yes.
that all just recycled water, or is that continuously fresh?
It's yeah, so this is what we kind of call drain to waste. So so basically it's always continuously new water when it is running.
Okay.
So,
It's
yes.
not, is it going to be heated water or,
No, it won't, it will not be heated water.
okay.
And then these are just some more close-up images of some of those various spray features. You can see sort of just the different types of activities, the different types of sprays. You know, some of these sprays are a little bit more counted for sort of the toddler and the younger children, and some of these spray features might be a little bit for the older children as well. But mostly these, again, very interactive features. Here's the image of the band shell and concession area. So very similar to what you guys saw before, except now the materials and the colors are starting to be a little more representative of some of the final choices here. So it's still that barrel roof for the band shell area that's a little bit tucked into the building itself. It will be slightly elevated, as you can see, above the lawn space that will be out in front of it. And then there'll be stairs on one side to the stage and an accessible ramp to the other side of the stage. And then those, the buildings that you see there, are the concessions and the restroom spaces, and we've got a little bit of a floor plan to show that as well. And so here you can see sort of that oval lawn space is up to the top of the page. It's kind of off to the front of that with the band shell out facing that oval lawn space. And so then on the back side of the band shell, you see you've got the two primary rooms there. You've got concessions off to the right, and you got the storage off to the left. And then on either side of the building are your various restrooms for men and women, with a couple of family sort of unisex restrooms on either side as well. And with that, I guess, are there any questions on the layout before I turn it over to Tom to talk a little bit more about where we're at with the budget for the estimate?
I guess the only question sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Tom, go ahead.
Sort of hodgepodge questions that came to me. Security and lighting tend to be somewhat of a concern. And a related question, would it make sense to have gates along the driveway that in the winter, so you just close a very simple metal gate, so you don't have to keep plowing,
For the parking lot, you're saying?
more so the road.
Oh, for the, okay.
Because it just strikes me that maybe you don't want to have cars driving back there certain times of the night. Maybe the village starts having vandalism problems or loitering problems in the back area, because that's pretty far away from anything. And if you put just a small gate, village at any point in time could just say, we've got problem, vandalism, kids, people back there we don't want, they close the gate. And it seems like a pretty simple thing to do that gives you quite a bit of control over a lot of your area.
Yeah, we can certainly discuss that as a possible add-in with staff.
Because I could see us not wanting to plow that whole road if it's the middle of winter and no one's using it. Another, I guess, just in general, the security and the lighting, are we pretty confident that the securities will, there's enough light that areas are gonna be safe at night?
I mean, it's meant to be like security level lighting, so the shelters will have anywhere from 1 to 2 sort of ceiling lights in them, so that they're basically just illuminating the area directly under those shelters, so that if there's a patrol car going by, they could view into those areas as opposed to being dark. So, but as far as the rest of the park is not currently meant to have lighting aside from the event space as an alternate bid.
At any of the pathways, are you contemplating anything use of solar lighting?
At this point in time, we are not contemplating solar lighting. We are still actually looking into what the lighting product is going to be around the event space, so we can take that into consideration.
Last time we went over this, there were some concerns about enough restrooms and parking, and there any possibility of having parking closer to the soccer fields, because they're so far away from the main park here.
So the master plan still accounts for the ability to add that parking that will kind of extend off to the east side up to the north, along with the opportunity to still add restrooms in the future in that area. This particular construction phase doesn't account for those just because those didn't fit within the budget. And in discussions with staff, there was a prioritization really going more towards many of the park amenities that are getting added as opposed to more parking or the second restroom. Now, that second restroom, it will be situated in a spot where it won't be too far from electrical and sanitary service off to the east. Water is a little bit of a different story, so if a water service ever comes to that neighborhood to the east, that'd be a better opportunity. But at this point, if you add that secondary restroom off in the east, you're gonna have to extend the water service that we're bringing in for these, call it phase 2 amenities.
I'm just worried that, I think this is a great project, and I think it's gonna draw a lot of people in, and I'm just wondering if it's gonna be able to service everybody.
Part of the thought was with that east side, that northeast side being mostly open fields and a shelter and a basketball court, part of what you could, because the other priorities were kind of already all around the current restrooms or the new restrooms that are gonna be put in place, is that way it gives you an opportunity to see how much activity might that north side see. If you're seeing a lot of games and events are getting scheduled there, then that could lead you to decide, let's go ahead and add the second set of restrooms at that point in time. But if you can continue to see that it's low use, then maybe you just don't need the restrooms until you see that sort of activity start to pick up.
Usually, I played soccer all my life, usually soccer games draw a lot of people.
Right, yeah.
Mothers and sisters and brothers and everybody else there, so. All right.
Joe?
Yeah, I have a question. You talked about that space that's up in, I'm gonna call it the northwest corner. There's a pad that's being, a cement pad. You're talking about food trucks. I don't think that's much of an area for it as far as size-wise. Also, I'm concerned about the trucks are gonna be coming off of Campus Drive. Is that pathway gonna be built to specifications to hold that kind of weight?
Yes, yeah, so that pathway, particularly from Campus Drive to that oval space, to the north of the oval space, is going to be a different cross-section of concrete specifically for that purpose, to make sure that it can handle small trucks and food trucks. So, and the thought is that it would just be maybe 1 or 2 food trucks that are there. It's not meant to necessarily be a large amount of multiple trucks. So it is meant to sort of be somewhat limited to how many trucks you might have there.
Okay. Now, and another quick question is that there's a crossing path in front of the entertainment venue, is that meant to be, or for the handicap accessibility, for people to be able to watch? Because obviously they need to, the rest of it's gonna be grass.
Right,
Which
correct.
takes them off of that. So you might wanna think about even a small pad off of that to the, I'll call it to the northwest of it, an area so that they can be not in the pathway, because that's obviously gonna be, people are gonna be walking through there. It might be nice to have something for them to be able to find a spot for them to locate.
Yeah, that's exactly part of the reason that pathway is there, not just for the circulation function that it might provide for, but the fact that it does then provide a hard surface for accessible seating in front of the stage. But that's a good comment. To your point, we can look at maybe creating a couple of bump outs. So if there is some walking activity during an event,
Right.
those that are trying to use it as a seating area aren't interrupted by that.
Thank you.
Couple questions. Are the paths going to be multi-use such that you'll have pedestrians and bicycle riders on the same paths?
I mean, right now, the pathways will be, most of the pathways, those outer loops are gonna be 10-foot wide. The oval loop will be 10-foot wide. Some of the secondary paths will be down to 8. And in the end, it really is more of a policy and operational call on what you wanna do about where you allow bikes or don't allow bikes.
I would suggest that if you are gonna have bikes, you might wanna put that median strip in the pathways. I mean, I don't know if aesthetically it matters, but from a safety perspective, I think it does help control the bikers a little bit, to be on one side, not the other. The other question I have, and this might be more detailed than you get into, but do you have projection signage, I mean, along here saying, to the extent, these are the activities allowed in this area, and these are the things that are not allowed in an area? Do you have provisions for that type of signage? For instance, on the soccer fields, no bike riding or, activities on the soccer field that are gonna wreck the field?
We currently don't have that type of signage worked into what the contractor would install. Usually, we've seen in the end, those are more owner-provided signs, because
Okay.
again, you might change those policies along the way.
That's fine.
Go ahead, Ron.
I have two questions. Number one, that I think you mentioned about the lighting there in the alternate bid. You will have a lighting for the future.
Yeah, so the alternate bid specifically will include lighting around the oval pathway, so that when you're doing events at night, you could have a little bit more accent lighting for that area. The future lighting that isn't included at all in the bidding process at this point is if you were to decide to do, add parking lot lights, ball field lights, any other sport field lighting, or if you wanted to continue to light even more path areas. So right now, the lighting is gonna be just the shelters and the concession band shell area in the base bid, and then lighting around the oval loop as an alternate bid.
Okay, well, I guess my question is for the staff or Sam, that it means that right now, if you are not planning to put the light in the ballpark, something, so you're planning or you are restricting the operation only the daylight time, correct?
That's correct, yep.
Okay.
And that's really a budget function.
Sure,
We just
understand.
don't have enough money.
And my next question is, is I think again, I'm looking at your plan for the soccer field, and I like the concept that between the two fields, that you utilize that space for the cricket pad. But looking at the dimension, you don't have enough space for the cricket ball. So it appears to me again, the thought process is probably that you can only play cricket when there is no soccer game going on, correct?
Correct, yeah, so those are overlapping fields, so
Yeah.
either cricket's happening or soccer is happening, yeah.
So I guess again for the staff, would there be any kind of a reservation system that, you book for either of these, or maybe even the basketball courts and everything?
Yeah, definitely. We'll roll this into the rest of, our reservation system. Just
Otherwise,
a little bit bare bones right now, but George is working on updating those policies and procedures and adding more detail. He did that with the shelters and the reservation system last year, and we're working on sports fields and looking at products that should help schedule those.
I think based on the plan that you're presenting then, and we are viewing, once built, even in the, this phase, without the future lighting, that's probably going to be the best park in the whole county. Maybe even in the whole area.
Yep, right.
Very pleased, thank you.
Steve, do you have any idea what the outer path distance is, lineage?
Not offhand, but that we could easily get that for you guys.
Tom, did you have?
With respect to the pond, I know it's already kind of developed, but I sense in some places, the governing bodies, they try to reduce the amount of runoff and fertilizer runoff to keep their pond cleaner. I don't know if you've kind of tried to accommodate landscaping that will preserve the pond as much as possible.
Yeah, so looking at that overall landscape plan there, you can see that the pond is represented as not being, the pond edge is not being touched in this project. So basically, the natural vegetation you guys currently have as kind of a buffer along that pond edge will remain intact.
Good.
I think something to emphasize here is we're also working with Hitchcock to provide us some additional kind of full scope landscaping plans that aren't included in this bid due to money considerations, but we'll have additional spots for trees as part of our tree planting program in the future, and additional areas that we could work with, community groups, Eagle Scout projects, things like that, to update landscaping. We've also obviously worked a lot with Root Pike Wind to identify areas that we can work on native planting. So I'd say this is truly a phase 2, and this is not the last work that we'll ever do in this park.
I also noticed that on this current 85%, there is no fishing pier. That's been removed for budgetary reasons?
Correct, yeah, so that
Okay.
would be something that you could look at again as a future item should additional funding become available.
The other thing that changed with that, Joe, is the village purchased the new Parks and Recreation office building, the old church on Old Spring Street, which has the direct adjacency to the pond that's more connected to the Pike River system. So we're going to look to see if that might be a better spot for a fishing pier in terms of the total park system, minimizing stocking costs and things like that.
Are you talking south of Case High School, you mean, or?
No.
Oh, the-
Old
No.
Spring Street? at
oh,
the
that
north
pond right
end.
there I got you.
Exactly,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
we'll,
Headwaters.
yeah, because George and Brittany will be over there right now. That might be a better spot for fishing. So we'll take a look at it, and it'll be a cost consideration.
So with that, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview on the budget. So I'm going to introduce and turn it over to Tom Featherstone with Featherstone Incorporated for that.
Thank you, Steve.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, staff, and guests. Appreciate the opportunity to come in and present the village on this exciting project. Since the village brought us on board at the beginning of the year, we've been working extremely closely with village staff, Steve and his entire design team, to define all of the cost variables in a detailed way to where the cost information, the estimate that you see here on the screen, could be used as a tool to help guide the decision-making process. As Steve has mentioned, this is the development and evolution of a master plan. And so as we looked at what is included in this next phase of construction, we also understood and recognized that there was costs that were exceeding the original approved $4.6 million budget. Having understood that, we wanted to put together the cost information to be used as a tool that what will financially define the next phase of construction. As we are taking a look at these various components, we also wanted to make sure that we understood where is the economy of scale on the development of the master plan, as well as not having to go back on the perhaps the next phase of construction and rebuild what has already been constructed in both phase 1 and phase 2. So that kind of helped define some of the alternates and what we included and didn't include in this next phase of construction. One of the commissioners mentioned the fishing pier. We understood that we could come back at a later date without disturbing any of the initial improvements during phase 1 and phase 2 and very easily economically economically add that fishing pier. So there was a lot of thought on what stayed in and what was deferred to a later date. So if you look at all these exciting, colorful numbers, you can see that we developed the estimate in a standard format that the industry, both design and construction, work in, and it's called the CSI divisions, and it's an acronym that stands for Construction Standard Indexing, if you're not familiar with that. So what we did is the first column is the division of work then which it occurs in. The next column is the descriptions, and then the last column is the campus park base project. And so you'll see in a moment we have a base project that the team was working towards maintaining that $4.6 million budget. So it's broken down in the various phases and various divisions. And when we put together these cost opinions, we want to make sure that we incur and include all the costs that the village is going to incur throughout the project. So it's not just the cost to dig a hole in the ground and put some concrete in the ground. So we captured all the costs of expenses that are going to be incurred by the village for this improvement and get it ready for the community. So I'll skip to the next slide. So if you go down to the page on the right, the total hard cost. So as we developed the project costs, we came in at a $4.3 million budget. And that includes all the trade contractors and general condition, design contingency, and a construction contingency. And then the next category of work is referred to all your soft costs. That's all your professionals, your utility companies, and so forth. And so, as you can see, for the total project cost, we exceeded the original approved budget of $4.6 million, and we had a total project cost of just under $5 million. So as we continued to work with the design team and the village staff, we identified a series of alternates, alternates 2, 3, 5, 7, or 5 and 7. So obviously they don't follow numerical order because there were some alternates that we understood financially it made sense to defer to the next phase without having to go in and necessarily interrupt what has already been constructed, as I mentioned earlier. So through those series of alternates that will continually be designed and competitively publicly bid, it was an additional $562,000. So for a cumulative total of the base project plus all alternates, we're at a $5.5 million project. Understanding the design team, staff, and our team's charge was to maintain a $4.6 million budget, we went to work with the team on what we could value engineer, and we don't really like that term value engineer because that usually means getting rid of cool stuff from your project. So what our attempt was is we took a look at things that perhaps would not impact program, playable events, and so forth that still provided support of the original program and design concepts. So value engineering option number 1 was instead of unit pavers, if we went with a colored or standard type concrete. Doesn't change the hardscape, doesn't change the function of the park. So that was a substantial savings. The next value engineer item we looked at is deleting the unscheduled trees. The reason why we felt that that could be a value add is because we could easily come back at a later date and perhaps through various grants that are available can come back and plant the specimen trees throughout the park above and beyond what's shown on the base bid with no disruption to the original phase 1 and 2 park. Value engineering 3 was to, on the exterior wall finish, to go from brick block detail to more of a traditional split face block. Again, nothing that changes the program element of the park nor the slight appearance adjustment. And then value engineering item 4 was deleting some storage shelving because village staff felt that they could reuse perhaps some shelving from another area that they weren't using and can be repurposed. And then taking a look at the soil compositions of the site and so forth, the skin fields or the turfus infields, we felt that we could reduce the clay section by 6 inches for another substantial savings without impacting the quality of the infields. So that cumulative total that we all felt would be a nice value add to the park without compromising the design would be a cost savings of $363,000. So if you skip down to the bottom, our original charge of $4.6 million in the base project, we are tracking under budget with the acceptance of these value engineered items. So that's where we are today. Now, we have these alternates on the project primarily to build out the master plan, if you will, but also as everyone watches the news and so forth, you can see how radical the construction market is right now with inflation, supply chain, and all that fun stuff that we get to deal with. And aside from the inflation and supply chain issues, there's also a little bit of contraction in the market right now, which is a good time. Now is a good time to be bidding this project out. Contractors are hungry for work. We're early in the bid letting season, and we're seeing some pretty radical bid variances in the market. It's very subjective how contractors are interpreting this supply chain and the contraction in the market as well as inflation. So we felt that it was still important to include these few alternates within the design, and let's put it out for bid competitively and see where the bids come in, because in the event that we did have a favorable bid variance from our projected estimated base project, we could potentially decide to do some of these alternates if there's a favorable bid variance for the village at the time of award. And then even more importantly, since we're collecting these bids in a competitive public bid arena, as the project evolves through its various phases of construction on this next construction phase, we can also take a look at the use of the contingency. If we have a favorable construction event where we get the project out of the ground, we haven't encountered poor soil conditions and so forth, we can perhaps start taking a look at some of these other alternates, and we tie them to the individual trade contractor's contract, and we can elect coming back to the committee and decide if we want to add some of these components, both for a budget increase or for potential savings. But at least we've done it when we're in a competitive public bid arena and they're referenced in an executed contract. So that's kind of our strategy behind the whole costing exercise and the development of the next step of going out for public bid. I will say that with the method of project delivery that has been approved on this, we are going to go out to competitively publicly bid each component of trade construction on this project to assure the best value for the community. So we're not going out to bid to general contractors. We're going out to bid to individual earthwork contractors. We're going out to bid to individual concrete contractors and so forth. And we're leveraging the market to get the best value for the village with no markup on any of those trades. So that more than substantiates our fee in managing the project. For all intents and purposes, we are on site managing the project, executing it like a traditional general contractor would be, but we're putting it on the street to well over 200 trades to get the best value for the community. So that's kind of the next step that we're working on now. And if all goes well, Steve and his team will be wrapping up the drawings within the next week, and we'll be putting it out to bid.
Okay. Can I ask a couple quick questions? You keep referring to phase 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? What does that entail as far as that goes? And then, obviously, timing has to do with when the bids come back and when you want to do this. But what impact is it going to have on closing the park down completely? I'm assuming we're going to be doing that. And then what's the duration of that time, if anybody would have a guess at? If you would?
Sure. We're generically referring to what is built out there right now as phase 1. It's already done. We're referring to this next go around, what the Hitchcock design team is designing now, and what we elect to advance into the 2022 construction as phase 2 of the park. And so with our plan, Steve and his team will have their drawings wrapped up by the end of the week. We'll be working on preparing all of the front-end bid documents next week and putting it out for bid formally by the 28th. It'll take about 3 weeks to get the bids in, tabulate them, prepare a bid award recommendation to come back for approval. And then we're looking to break ground in early spring and be wrapped up by fall of this construction season. And yes, that'll impact play within the park during construction.
When you say interrupt, is it going to be, are we closing it down completely? That's the question I have, because obviously the pickleball courts, are they going to be accessible during construction time, or the playground, or is it just going to be shut down?
We were going to work that out operationally with the staff, with George and Sam. We don't see why there isn't components of the park that can remain open within the limits of work that are defined. We're not going in the middle of accessing the job through the existing improvements. So there should be an opportunity to maintain an experience within the park during construction. But we haven't worked out the exact details of that operationally with staff, and we'll be doing so before we go out to bid. And I don't know if anyone else wants, Sam, or if you want to comment anymore.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to keep it open as much as possible, but obviously, you know, when they're doing mass grading out there and stuff like that, we probably want to keep kids out of the park. So, you know, we'll get it back open as soon as we can, or as areas are finished off. We'll try to keep it open, but, you know, we'll also try to coordinate with the public via George's, you know, Facebook posts and our village website and things of when specific areas might open or close or things like that, as well as post stuff out on the site. Also, you know, Featherstone will be out on the site every day too, so I'm sure there will be some people who, you know, they ignored our closed pickleball courts before we opened them and cut the chains, so we'll actually have someone out there to shoo them off if they ignore all our rules and still try to put on a hard hat and go play pickleball.
So you're anticipating fall of 2022 to be in and out?
Yes.
Excellent.
And we will have a construction fence, 6-foot-high cyclone construction fence around the entire work area that separates public from construction. So it's not like little Johnny's going to be running across where the dozer's going, so.
Tom?
Obviously, Featherstone's construction management is going to be very critical to this success of this project. Have you done other projects like this as construction managers?
Extensively, so yes. We do a tremendous amount. Over 50 to 60% of our work is in the specialty. I refer to this as a specialty land development type project. We've worked in and around the community. We just finished Veterans Memorial Park last year, if you've had an opportunity to go visit that in Kenosha County. And we've done over $300 million of improvements at facilities like the Chicago Botanic Garden, various park districts in and around the Chicagoland market, stretching into southern Wisconsin as well. So this is really the specialty that we bring to our clients and public communities.
Well, good.
Okay. Any other questions of Tom or Steve?
No, let's get started. Sam, will this have to go to the board?
Do we have to do anything?
Not to issue the bids. This will hit the street, as Tom said, within hopefully the next week to 2 weeks. And but the village board will have to approve both the final bid acceptance as well as the bonding for the actual us funding.
Will you
the
have
project.
anything prepared for some type of a information for the board? I mean, there's only 2 of the board members here now, but there are other ones, and they're going to have questions.
Yeah, definitely. We'll make sure that
We're not going to give all the answers, you are.
with bid acceptance, George and I will be there to give a brief presentation of the project and how the bid came in and things like that. So,
I think one of the questions is that when is it going to be done?
yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
good, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll go on to new business, and that will be Ordinance 06-2022, amending the Code of Ordinances, Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin. Sorry, never mind. Spring Trail Condominium Plat Application CP 0122.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, these next 3 items are all related to each other. We have both the condominium plat and the zoning, as well as the corresponding certified survey map. So the condominium plat will give kind of a good overview of it. I think it's wise that you vote on all of them separately, but really they're all interrelated as a project together. So as some background, the applicant wishes to plat 32 two-unit house condominium units across 2 lots. The applicant apportioned the units into 16 two-unit house buildings. The plat extends Gina Drive eastwards and then bends northwards into a new cul-de-sac called Spring Trail Court. Extensive wetlands north of the developed area make further roadway extension difficult. The applicant also plans to construct the multi-use pathway to the east of the property, shown on the village's master bicycle plan. The project will also bring water northwards to Giddings Road and allow for future development in both the lands north of this property, as well as the larger area surrounding settlement at Hoods Creek, which is water limited at the time. Staff finds the application complies with the land use element of the comp plan. We lack an adopted plan for local planning area 4. In terms of Chapter 74, which is land division standards, generally for design standards, this will require a subdivider's agreement to install it, as is standard with all our subdivisions and plats. This contains the required improvements for the CSM. In terms of Chapter 90 standards, development on all lots 1 and 2 must follow the standards outlined in the RL1 district. The R1 district allows 2-unit houses by right. It also allows multiple detached houses and multiple 2-unit houses on a single lot if 1, approved in accordance with the plat procedures, Chapter 74, and 2, a plan is submitted showing that the lot would be subdivided so that each principal and accessory building would comply with the lot and building regulations of the subject zoning district, which this does. As a fiscal note, the lands contained within the plat do not lie with any tax incremental districts. Similar 2-unit houses within the nearby Heartland Village subdivision range between $220,000 and $280,000. 75% median home value in the village is $293,100 for these types of units, which generate approximately just under $2,000 a year in taxes for the village. Additionally, this will generate about $3,100 in impact fees. Those were actually modified last night, so that number's a little out of date, but it'll be about the same. Total estimated value of the development per acre is $787,500. Cost projections for adjacent road repaving estimate the project needs to contribute about 7% of its taxes over 20 years to the cost of repaving. That's less than 9% the village on average contributes to its annual paving program. The property also contains significant wetland and easement impacts, limiting the developable area of the property and depressing the estimated value per acre, which is not the developer's fault. There's a 150-foot transmission easement for the power lines that run adjacent to the railroad tracks. So it looks like a lot more property than is actually kind of easily developable out there. We've worked with the developer to tuck the multi-use pathway within that easement, and we'll work with ATC to accomplish that. But, you know, they really limit anything that's greater than a foot within that easement. So that's a functionally non-buildable area. We think, you know, taking that out of the equation, it's a pretty good estimated value per acre. In terms of additional considerations, while not required by code, the village staff recommend the applicant install a connecting multi-use pathway from the cul-de-sac eastwards between buildings 9 and 10 to the multi-use path so that the users of the pathway do not have to loop around the public street network to the pathway connection on Spring Street. It's not required by code, but we just think it's a good idea. So, Jeff, I don't know if you want to do it or not, but it's, you know, we thought it was something to point out. Only one condition on this one, they'll agreement that we need a development agreement with the village to ensure the proper construction of all public facilities. With that, everything else is on the condo plat. I can go right into the zoning and CSM, or I can answer questions on the condo plat specifically, whichever you'd prefer, Mr. Chair.
I don't know when this question will fall in, but I'll give it now. Does there have to be a fall area for the high electrical poles or anything like that?
No, effectively the ATC easement is like a different country.
Okay.
Like we just treat it as we try to coordinate with them, but their easement is their land and we can do whatever we want outside of it.
Sam, this is more of a request, and maybe my packet didn't get it, but I always like to see the elevations of the buildings, and I didn't see it in here.
Robin, did you put them in the?
It's not critical, I don't think, but it's.
We'll
I
forward
just
them
think
to
it's
you.
just nice
Jeff
to see.
forwarded some elevations of the condos. They look pretty nice. They have some stone banding around the bottom. Generally, the garages, as you can see in the condominium plat shown on the screen, there's oftentimes have a side-loaded garage and a front-loaded garage, so you get some interesting unit layouts and some mixture of how people are accessing the site, but they'll look nice.
Are there sidewalks in here?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the entire east side of, what is that, Stewart, will be upgraded to an urban section. And then within the Spring Trail Court, we'll all have curb and gutter and sidewalks, so that'll be nice.
Go ahead, Ram.
Sam, can you elaborate on your comment that it will allow the water to go to the Giddings Road and the settlement at Hoods Creek? Settlement at Hood Creek does have the water except the west part.
It does, but it's, the utility is limited expansion of that subdivision. So what's out there now is basically as much as Jeff could build out there. He's also the landowner up there. Thus, this project kind of came in. I don't want to speak for you too much, but effectively, to develop this, he can bring water northwards, and then the utility will allow him to add additional lots up in settlement at Hoods Creek. So, you know, we've kind of maximized the development potential of that area due to water limitations. As of now, this development will really open that up, and there's a good amount of master planned residential acres north of Giddings Road that Jeff and some other landowners will now be able to utilize. We're also coordinating with some adjacent property owners out there to do some minor main extensions too, so people are already working with them to kind of take advantage of the future water, which is nice.
Sam, that's not our limitations, that's the city of Racine's water utility, correct?
Yeah, water limitation.
I just
Yep.
want to verify so there's not any misunderstanding.
Correct, yes.
And my number two question is that in this map which we have on the screen, above the proposed area and below the Giddings Road, the blue area, that's all wetlands, correct?
No, it's not all wetlands, but those are all zoned, that's a zoning map, those are all zoned
I
as
see.
state lots, so they're
Okay,
all
well-
like 2.5 acre lots.
But the wetlands are very, I think, the north of the cul-de-sac. that you're
Correct,
proposing.
yes, the wetlands run north of the cul-de-sac, they kind of run generally southwest to northeast. So the pathway will have to go through a minor bulb of wetlands, but other than that, to push a road all the way north through that would have been a pretty significant wetland impact. If you look at the water main easements on the CSM, which we can talk to in a sec, you can see that they're essentially engineered to avoid them as much as possible as well. None of them are truly high-quality wetlands, but, you know, they are what they are, and the rules are what they are, so. Would you like me to move on to zoning and CSM, or do you want to vote on this, or as a package, or, you know, I can bring up Jeff and then have him sit down in between? How do you want to run it?
Whatever you think is most
Why don't I
efficient.
run through all three? You ask me the technical questions, and we can bring up Jeff to present the entire project together, answer any questions you might have, and then take 3 votes.
That'll work.
All right. So moving on to the map amendment, I'm not going to restate most of what I just said, but he's amending the zoning for lots 1 and 2 on the CSM related to this application. The remaining lots 3 and 4 remain AG1. The applicant wishes to construct, you know, those 32 units on lots 1 and 2, so those are why they're subject to the rezone. This all complies with the comprehensive plan. As a zoning note, lot 4, which is the skinny one that the pathway will go in along the east side of the property, will be under 5 acres, so it'll no longer comply with the AG1 rules. However, it's the applicant's intent to dedicate that to the village, because it's effectively just gonna house a multi-use pathway for the public in the future. So we'll take care of the zoning for that as soon as it's dedicated and get it to a public district to clean up that zoning. So we thought that we shouldn't hold this up for that at this time due to public noticing requirements and stuff, but as soon as we take control of it, we'll handle it ourselves.
We're gonna maintain that then, ultimately?
Yeah, it's part of the Pike River Pathway network effectively. I mean, we still have kind of the gap, and how are we gonna cross Spring Street, which will be a whole other interesting conversation with the county, but at least this will pick it up from Spring Street north to Giddings Road. From there, the master bike plan has it going north from Giddings Road, essentially up to Hoods Creek, where it'll connect into a future pathway that runs along the length of Hoods Creek. So it's a pretty significant gap there that we're taking care of right now, and yeah, it's just nice to see additional bike paths. In the meantime, I'm sure it'll be enjoyed by the residents out there.
Okay.
All right, and then finally, for the CSM, So they're cutting the 27.124 acre parcel into 4 lots. Lot 1 is 1.293 acres for the 3 2-unit houses. Those will get started right away in terms of construction, because there's existing utilities and things, so those need the least amount of improvements to be buildable lots. Then the 13 2-unit houses on the remainder of Lot 2 will hold the rest of the development. Lot 3 to the north is reserved for future development, remaining AG1, and Lot 4 is that one containing the easements and the multi-use pathway. Complies with the comp plan. We had one condition on removing the village president's signature. Only the clerk is needed for approvals. And then this meets the Chapter 90 standards, except for that Lot 4 to P1, the fiscal note stays the same. So condition number 2 is he'll dedicate Lot 4 to the village. And if he doesn't, he'll need to submit a zoning map amendment, but it's his intent to dedicate it. So we'll solve it that way. That is the entire project. 32 new units on a kind of tough to develop parcel, extension of the street network and a bike path. I think this is a win-win and provides water to open up a bunch of additional land. With that, I can answer any technical questions. Otherwise, I'd invite the developer up here to give you his spiel.
All right, any other questions of Sam or staff?
Let him spiel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like Sam said, I do own Hoods Creek too. The last phase we put on Hoods Creek was in 2018. Due to the fact that Deer Creek Estates and Hoods Creek are all fed with an 8-inch water main through Caledonia and basically dead end at the entrance of Hoods Creek currently. Therefore, 2 reasons: water utility, fire protection is getting close to capacity, so they want to feed that site with a 12-inch. And they also would prefer that it doesn't go through a Caledonia pipe. Way I understand it, they have to pay a fee to use that Caledonia pipe, so water utilities making less feeding those group of houses because of the way it's fed right now. So I believe it is their intention to shut it off on Highway K and feed it from the south. The original plan when Hoods Creek was built back in '04 was to take 90th Street right up through with the water, and I've never been able to secure a easement to get the water through there. So 4 years in the making, fast forward, I was able to secure this land. I offered the owner to either buy an easement. But I guess my whole main goal is to keep building at Hoods Creek, and that's why this project came into play. I was able to, he did not want an easement. His preference was to sell me the land, which was fine by me. So that's how this condo project came into play, to basically utilize the land that I needed to obtain to get water to Hoods Creek. And it's been a somewhat of a challenging site to design on because of the wetlands. But I also, if you get up towards Giddings Road, those are bigger parcels too, so I didn't want to jam a bunch of houses up on Giddings Road. So that 11 acres in that CSM, as of right now, I don't have any intentions to utilize it. I do plan to sell it. I've offered it to the neighbors. I'm hoping one of the neighbors will buy it and they can decide what they want there versus me jamming houses and next to bigger lots. We designed the condos in 2 phases because if we can get this all done in the next 2 months, we're hoping to be moving dirt and putting foundations in by the end of May. So this project, we're guessing, would take about 3 years to build out the units. I am just building the public improvements, and then I am selling the property to a builder out of Pleasant Prairie who will build the condos. So I won't be involved in that process. And that's actually why I chose to do condos versus single family, as I can sell it all as one entity instead of having to sell 16 individual lots. So I can hopefully be done and gone yet this year and have water service to Hoods Creek. So hopefully I'll be back here by fall working on something with Hoods Creek. The units, just a little briefly, they're roughly 1,600. A 2-bedroom unit is 1,626 square feet, A 3-bedroom unit is just shy of 1,700 square feet. A good portion of these have 3-car garages on them, so they're very appealing to all different lifestyles. They've recently added the 3-car garages, and that makes these things sell real nice. The project it's about 2,100 feet of bike path that I will be installing and donating to the village. Obviously, it's nothing I really enjoy paying for, but I think it'll actually help sell this site also. That'll attract people. Even the neighbors that I've talked to already are excited about just having that path to walk on there. Because airline especially is a very busy road. Let's see. The North Stewart that will turn to curb and gutter. I really was trying to leave it as a ditch, but with the sidewalk requirement, that sidewalk would like be in the front door if I had a ditch there still, so that thing's gonna end up curb and gutter, so we can keep the sidewalk out close to the road then. I think that about covers most aspects of the project, if you have any questions for me.
Well, I was gonna give you a question, but I think you just answered it. I was gonna wonder about your involvement in the sidewalks, which we require, but you are aware of it, so I won't
Yep.
ask my question.
And I have it written into the contract with the builder. They will be installing them as they build them, so that they'll be on the hook for that.
And that's fine, Sam?
Yeah.
We prefer to do it that way, so not just developing this, I actually self-perform all my own work, utilities, landscaping, excavation, everything. And any project I've ever been on, usually you end up destroying them if you put them in first, so you put them in twice then, so. And I have it worked out with the builder. We are going to build this place in order. The one we're working on with them in Pleasant Prairie right now, you could pick out which one you wanted, and it turned into a nightmare. So we're gonna start by Spring Street, and it's gonna be a solid trail until you get back. So all be sold in line, and sidewalk will be put in the order they're built. But the way they're selling in Pleasant Prairie, we project 3 years should be done and gone.
Good.
Any other questions here? All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this before we get to the voting here? All right. Then on the condominium plat application, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, it's under recommendation, it's got it's a misprint. You got villas at Coach Manor.
yes.
But anyway, I'll make the recommendation to move approval of the Spring Trail condominium plat application. That should be CP-01-22 to the village board, subject to the recommended conditions.
Second.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Do I have, Tom, did you have something? Nope, you looked like you were gonna say something. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next then will be the zoning map amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approval of the ordinance 01-2022, a zoning map amendment for Giddings Road, zoning map amendment application, am I in the right one? Yeah, ZMA 101-22. Am I the right one there?
Second.
That's right. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then on the certified survey map application.
Okay, that is,
Counting on you, Joe.
okay,
I'll
I'll make a
motion.
recommend-
I'd like to make a motion.
there we
Okay.
go.
I recommend, Plan Commission move to recommend approval of the Spring Trail condominium certified survey map application, CSM-01-22 to the village board, subject to the recommended conditions.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You're off to the races. Thank you, Jeff. All right, at this time, I'd like to just take a maybe 5-10 minute break. The agenda is going to be Giddings Road Certified Survey Map Application, CSM 0222. Robin?
Yeah, so you guys, I heard from Tom that you guys missed me.
We did.
That I was strangely quiet for this plan commission. But you're in luck, because you get me from here on out. So hats off, I know you guys love Sam too. So this is a certified survey map, actually in the same general area as where we were on Giddings Road. It's at 7720 Giddings Road. It is basically splitting one 2.5 acre 2.29 acre parcel into two lots. One lot will, the remaining lot will be 1.2 acres and the new lot will be 0.8 acres. They also dedicated 40 feet to the Giddings Road right-of-way, to designate it a collector street. Both lots will be zoned RE. The new lot complies with RE standards, as that's a minimum of 100 feet width, as well as a minimum of half an acre size, and it will be, any home built on it will be required to be a minimum of 2,500 square feet. And so that is, it complies with everything. When staff is sort of suggesting that we approve it.
Sort of.
Sort of, yeah. Sorry, I got really rusty, and there was no meeting last month, so it's a little tough. I got to get back into form. Give me some time.
You'll have it.
Any questions?
Ron, go ahead.
Hey, Robin, is that the lot right opposite the entrance to the Hoods Creek?
No, it's basically on Giddings right before the railroad, so it's between the airline road and the railroad.
Okay, before the railroad.
Yes, before the
the-
railroad.
Okay,
East of the railroad.
East of the railroad.
East of railroad, okay. Thank you.
Any quick answers or quick questions for quick answers of Robin?
That's about as standard as they come.
If no questions, then I'd be looking for a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of the Giddings Road Certified Survey Map Application CSM 02-22 to the Village Board, subject to the recommended conditions.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment on this? Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so in the exact opposite of standard as they come, at least here for Mount Pleasant, next we have, oh, you should be introducing it, right?
If you would like me to, I will. Next on the agenda is the Leo Private Rental Residence, SP 0322. Robin.
Okay, so this is a 374-unit housing development. It's across 49 acres on Spring Street, a little bit west of Highway V, and east of the frontage road. The composition of the units, it will be 1 and 2 family units available for rental. The mix of bedrooms and unit sizes are as follows. 31% is 1 bedroom. 18% is 2 bedrooms with a 912 square feet. 19% is 2 bedrooms with 1,064 square feet. 12% is a 2-bedroom flex unit of 1,100 square feet, and 18% will be 1,585 square feet, 3 bedrooms. So this development will be responsible for bringing water and sewer from County Trunk Highway V to the property, as well as installing it in their newly constructed portion of Carrington Way. There will be a new road adjacent to the Racine Bible Church and a new east-west road connecting those 2 roadways. The development will be master metered and have garbage collection on site privately. The village staff is enthusiastic about this development proposal, as it's a completely new type of housing product to the village, and it fulfills a lot of missing housing needs. And also, this housing development would not be possible without the zoning code update of 2020. This one uses both sort of the by right duplex, the smaller lot sizes, as well as the cottage court arrangement, which you can see in the site plan, that the not the blue units, but all the other units are arranged around a central small green area. So whether we're getting somebody that's newly moved into town for all of our new, businesses and whatnot, or it's a new nurse working in Aurora, this is going to meet a lot of sort of housing needs for a lot of different people. Village staff does recognize that the village, we have not approved local plan for local plan area 1, but this product does meet the standards and hopes and aspirations of that local area plan, meaning that it's a sort of denser residential focused development. So this project also makes sense from a fiscal point of view for Mount Pleasant. It actually pays more than its share of roadways on a tax basis, because all the internals of the development are private. That being said, they still are developing a lot of public roads around the perimeter. I'm just going to sort of go over, you guys have looked, I hope you've read through the packet and gone over the different standards. The development does meet all of the standards that we have set as far as zoning, lot and building regulations, other village-wide regulations, and the RM2 regulations. There are, kind of scrolling down here, to give you the actual sort of the nitty-gritty on the fiscal note, the property has a land and improvement value of $248,500. It lies outside of any tax increment district. However, discussions on potential financial agreements are currently underway. Using assessment data from previous development done by the developer, which you will see forthwith, they have a pretty exhaustive presentation for you after this. The village assessor estimates an improvement value of somewhere between $45 and $55 million. The value equates to roughly $939,000 to $1.1 million in taxes for local taxing jurisdictions, $298,000 to $368,000, which would go to Mount Pleasant. The wide range given is due to the relative novelty of this type of development in southeast Wisconsin. So we don't have too many priors, so we gave a pretty big range. With 3,779 feet of urban local roadway and 658 feet of collector roadway creates an estimated fiscal obligation of $543,000. However, all the local roadway will be shared by future users. So the local roadway is split between the church and an additional potential park in the future, or will be a park, and the bottom is shared by HSA. So the actual obligation goes down to $319,224. So they come in at a 15-year schedule of 6 to 7% of their taxes to roads, and at a 20-year schedule of repaving, it's 4 to 6%. The village currently allocates 8.6% of its total levy to roads. So this is actually punching above its weight. So the more sort of developments we approve like this, the better we do vis-a-vis the paving program and other municipal financial obligations that we have. It's just sort of smart economics. Even if this development were responsible for 100% of both sides of the public roadway, it still could almost cover that. So moving along into additional staff considerations. The adjacent property contains the Racine Bible Church. The village and church reached an agreement for the church to dedicate approximately 55 feet of the westernmost portion of the property for the purposes of public roadway. Currently, this exists as the church's driveway to go into their parking lot. It's very long and due for a repave soon, and they were only too happy to let that repaving be done at the behest of Mount Pleasant and future taxpayers. So that was basically a fortunate arrangement on everybody's behalf. The church has also agreed to dedicate approximately 8 of the southernmost acres of the property for the neighborhood park, is identified as Park Site 11 in Mount Pleasant Parks and Open Space Plan. In return, the church requested that Mount Pleasant cover the costs associated with connecting a municipal sewer and water due to this development, and that the street parking on the road adjacent to their property have one-sided angled parking. Basically, because this development's coming in, they're going to be required to connect to municipal sewer and water. Not to mention that the site that they're dedicating for the park contains their leach field. So as soon as that's gone, they're gonna have to connect to municipal sewer and water. So as part of the agreement right now, which details are yet to be completely finalized, the village would be covering those costs. That would either be done through the park impact fees or some other financial arrangement if that were to go to some other financing mechanism, such as TRIP or TIF. The other kind of notifications is that HSA on the south agreed to dedicate half their required right-of-way, and the I-94 and Associates at the southeast corner agreed to dedicate 33 feet of their local right-of-way in order to accommodate these roads. Discussion on financial incentives and rate of recovery agreements regarding the large amount of new infrastructure in this project are ongoing between the village, the applicant, and RCEDC. The Community Development Authority and Village Board must review and approve any development agreement. So that's just a big kind of, there's still more things to work out, but this is the general where we're at. So the village staff, we do recommend approval of this, and this would be the body that would approve the site plan. We recommend on condition of two, and then I will add a recommended third condition that I did not put on your packet. Condition one is the applicant shall revise the plat application to show short and long-term bicycle parking that meets the 90-420.60 standards. As a part of the new zoning code, it requires short and long-term bicycle parking for any sort of development or building that's not just one or two family. So these, for the cottage court areas, will have bicycle parking required. Short-term is just, could be a rack. Long-term does require some level of coverage and or security. So those standards are in the code. And they can even dedicate like sort of one of the garage units to this or anything like that. And so that's kind of, could be an amenity for the area. The second one is our standard. The applicant shall obtain approval from Public Works Department of all public improvements with development agreements regarding the water and sewer along public roadways. That is, as I mentioned. The third condition that is to be added that I sort of neglected to put in there because we hadn't been talking about it in a long time is that a traffic impact analysis is required by code for anything that generates over 100 trips a day. So being as it's 374 units, that automatically sort of triggers that. So they need to have that submitted before they get their final engineering reviews approved. And that is it. They have an extensive presentation which would probably answer a lot of your questions, but real quick, any questions to me on the content that I've proposed?
Robin, are you familiar with any other developments around here, and do you know how they have done? Because this is brand new, and I'm just curious.
This is brand new, and I think the presenter will have a little bit more information on that, and they've done their homework as whether this product is landed. But as far as I'm aware, no, that there's nothing like this in southeast Wisconsin. One is because of sort of the flexibilities of our zoning code. This would most likely land in a PUD or strict multifamily district in other localities, but this one lands within an RM district, but under 1 and 2 unit development. Yeah, I'm not familiar with anything that's remotely like this.
All right. Even if it wasn't in southeastern Wisconsin, I was just curious how successful they were.
The examples that and they'll show you one that's in Huntsville, Alabama, the cottages of Old Monrovia, is great, and they said they've been doing gangbusters and enough, and I trust them as far as they have a lot of money people behind them. If it wasn't doing well, I don't think they would be trying to build more, especially with building costs as what they are today. As far as staff's view, this hits the perfect need that we've been talking about a long time. This would be great for individual high-income earners that are single and young that we're lacking in getting. We have a lot of new jobs, but we don't have a lot of those places for those people to live. Right now, we've built a lot of houses, big houses, but they don't want to live in those places yet. And then the other is downsizers, retirees and such that are looking to sort of get rid of the sort of burdens and responsibilities of large land ownership. And we've seen a huge amount of interest in that. The comparables will be Tivoli Green right here, which has been doing very well in those two markets. You go over there also, you notice all the license plates, and they're all like Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, all that sort of stuff. They're saying people are moving here because of this. And we're really excited. Also, being right close to the Aurora Clinic or hospital is a huge boon too, because those people would love a very quick bicycle commute. So, anything else?
Have you picked out your unit yet?
No, unfortunately, I
know you're psyched about this.
I am psyched. That is true. But yeah, my wife gets to pick where we live, and we live closer to her work than mine.
Okay.
He's gonna build his own.
There you go.
Just a quick question in regards, you mentioned a park nearby. Who currently has control of the park land are we pursuing this, or is that something that's part of this project here?
It is. So currently, the Racine Bible Church owns the property as a part of all of this agreement, as far as transferring the property rights and doing that. That would be a CSM that would probably come later. They would dedicate the 8 acres to the village to develop specifically as a park.
Oh, so it's 8 acres?
8, yeah.
Okay.
Approximately 8 acres. The exact number has not been sort of measured and finalized yet, but it's approximately 8 acres. It's identified on our Parks Master Plan, which actually is kind of fortuitous, because I sort of did the legwork on this. When this kind of came to me, I just walked over to I didn't walk, I drove, and then I walked up to the door to Racine Bible Church, and I just asked to speak to whoever the ops manager was. And a guy named Brian, nicest guy, and was talking to him about this potential development and what can be done. And I asked them what their plans for the south side of the property was, and they said, we've always wanted to put a park there. And I was like, well, I have just the offer for you. So it's really been stars aligning for a lot of this kind of thing, where normally you don't get that. So I'm really happy about that.
Are we making a trade for any impact fees with this, or is there something, Sam, if you have any information on that?
So the tentative agreement as of now, obviously in regards to this specific development, discussions for incentives just got underway. They just provided our financial advisor their pro forma. So in terms of exactly how that shakes out, I can't say. The general terms is the park impact fees from this project will go to help pay the church down for connecting into public sewer and water costs, which is kind of the trade, and then they will dedicate the land for the road, no longer have those maintenance responsibilities, and dedicate the land for the park, for which they will have direct adjacency to and say in the development of. So, it's kind of everyone gives a little and gets a lot in this case, in terms of the village getting the park that's on its master park plan, the church getting an adjacent park, connecting into public utilities, and losing the maintenance responsibility for that driveway as a new public road.
And
then,
parking.
And parking, and adjacent on-street parking. And then the developer not having to dedicate as much of their property that they're buying to that public road, because the church is, dedicating the majority of that instead. So everyone kind of got a little bit. And the fees will kind of get shuffled around. Everyone will be made whole, and we'll try to build a park at the end of the day. So once this is all said and done, and they've paid their impact fees, and we've transferred the land from the church, we'll probably be back with George later this year or early next year to start talking about how that park designs out. It's not going to be as grand as the one we had earlier today, because it's just a neighborhood park, but there'll be some amenities, and we'll obviously have a public engagement process with the neighbors, and the church obviously being the major one, but new people who are living in these units, Advocate Aurora, HSA, and the other adjacent property owners, to see what they want to see out in that park. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Another kind of sort of win is that the people that move into these, they're going to get a brand new park right next door. So that increases the sort of the value and the attractiveness of the development itself. It's just a win all the way around.
is in keeping with when the trustees go to some of the grand openings and other developments and stuff, and they come to us and say how nice it is to work with people who are cooperative and working with, you know, you two and other in the community and everything. And we receive a lot of compliments. We should probably pass more of them on to you, but we're afraid, you know, what's gonna happen with you guys then too.
Yeah, we get enough from working with developers when we kind of nudge them in one way or the other, and they kind of indicate that they're not used to being nudged in that way, and it's rather exciting. Like we tell them to sort of open up the creativity and flexibility, and we'll work with you. We're a very development friendly community, and we pride ourselves on that. So, yeah.
Received in particular, like with the Ashley people and some of their stuff off of International Drive that's in the process. So it was very good to hear that, and we just stood there and smiled.
Well, thank you. Any other questions for me? And I'm also will be available after the presentation for additional feedback from the village's staff perspective.
Nope, we're ready for the presentation.
All right. That's all yours.
Thank you, Robin. I'll try to not make it as exhaustive as he said. It is a little in depth. We're very proud of our communities, and so we put a lot of passion and effort into our presentation. But I'm told sometimes I can go a little long-winded, so I'll try to be a little briefer for everybody's time. My name is Scott Weathers. I'm the Development and Construction Manager for our team, and our community is called Leo Living. Leo, I was saying to some of the gentlemen out here, it's not an astrological sign, but it is an acronym for love each other, because that is what our communities strive to do. We want to bring back that sense of community and feel within our communities that has seemed to gotten lost in translation over the years. And so when we are looking into communities that we want to develop in, that's what we're looking in the community. We are good people looking to work with good people and looking to provide good quality housing that isn't seen in this part of the country. One thing, there's a question about seeing around here. This product really started in the southwestern United States, Arizona, New Mexico area, and at this time, it's way outpacing any vertical apartment communities or even fee simple traditional residential housing right now. If you want to, can I change it?
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, there we go. Who we are, we're a joint venture started between Avenir Living and Oakley Group. Avenir Living is a vertically integrated multifamily developer, investor, manager based out of Aventura, Florida. They have a little over 15,000 units under management right now. And Oakley Group is based out of Birmingham, Alabama, with about 3,000 units under management. I believe our presentation is old right now. And they're vertically integrated developer, investor, manager of traditional garden-style apartment communities. And the joint venture between these two organizations started about a year and a half ago because we saw a missing middle, in especially the Midwest to the East Coast, of housing options that weren't there. David Oakley, founder of Oakley Group, always likes to tell a story about his mom, who is a retired school teacher, was wanting to move to Birmingham to be with her grandchildren. And selling her home, you can get a boatload of money for it right now, but she'd have to be buying either equal price home or a more expensive home. And so he was like, well, Mom, maybe you should start looking at an apartment. And she's like, I don't want people above me. I don't want people below me and to the sides of me. So that started the light bulb that we need to provide a different type of residence, something that is maintenance free. You can lock and leave, you can go, you can enjoy your time and not have to worry about your the landscaping going bad or your house not being taken care of. And it makes sure that you don't have neighbors surrounding you. And so we developed a goal to build these communities in good areas. This is just a brief history of the founders and principals and the members of our development team. I won't bore y'all with that information on everybody. Niket Architecture and Design, they are an architecture firm based out of Birmingham, Alabama, that we've known for about 15 years. They started in the traditional T&D style development and designing residences, then got into student housing, and we contracted them because of their unique eye for design and creating a timeless look in communities. I'll have some pictures of what our community actually looks like, but they chose to go with the traditional craftsman style home that has been around since 1900. It hasn't really changed, and I'm sure it's going to be around long after I'm gone, and so we are choosing to go with this design so that these communities will last, and they'll constantly be a garden in the middle of different neighborhoods. We Branding and Sprout, they are the interior designer and branding agent to make sure we provide a good look. As you can see, the signage and interiors provide an inviting space for our residents to enjoy. Summary of design. So this is a sketch plan of what our communities look like. As you can see, it looks like your traditional neighborhood. Our homes are attached and detached houses. We like to call them the attached. We like to call them twins instead of duplex. But if you can see, we really focus on the community feel. We have pocket parks strewn throughout. We have a lot of sidewalks, walking trails. Anytime you have to have a retention pond, that retention pond becomes an area for people to enjoy and walk around, park around. Our clubhouse, we've broken into 2 different buildings. Again, this is Niket Architecture and Design's input because they wanted to invite our neighbors to converse with each other. And whenever you have one building, people tend to congregate in one little area. But with us separating it, it really invites our residences to kind of mingle throughout around the pool deck and the fitness center and the lounge area and really converse with each other. And then again, with our layout of the homes, we don't really have a back of a house because we do have the duplex style. We lay out the community so whenever you're walking through the community, you see a front of the house, you see a neighbor, you see a front porch, you see decorations for Halloween or Christmas or any Easter, any time of the year. Robin already touched on our layout. We have 49 acres with 374 units, approximately 3,000 square feet of clubhouse, and a 2,200 square foot pool. This is just a graphic show, the map showing where our community will go. It's going to be to the left of the Racine Bible Church and that L-shaped parcel right there. And these, I'm going to go through these quicker because I have pictures of actual construction homes. This is our clubhouse, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom cottage. Our carriage house, the carriage house has 3 garages underneath and a 2 bedroom unit above. This is actually one of our more popular units. The garages do not attach to the unit. It's an exterior stairwell, but the garages are a space that can be rented out by any residence. And as Robin said, it's a big amenity and can possibly be turned into a bike rack area. And these are new units that we are designing just for this area. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and as you heard, Aventura, Florida, and Birmingham doesn't get as cold down there, so we don't have to have garages as much. We could walk outside and the snow because we don't have as much snow. So we are adjusting our design to add attached garages to a good majority of the units that are going into this development up here. And then a 3-bedroom townhouse and the twin. This twin is basically taking the floor plan of a 3-bedroom townhouse and kind of just merges it together. And the case study of the cottages of Old Monrovia, this is a community that we just got the certificate of occupancy for the entire community. And as you can see the layout, you have the pocket parks throughout, a lot of sidewalks, a lot of connectivity, and it invites people to commune throughout the community. And this is a picture at the entrance of the community. As you can see, the houses are that traditional craftsman style home. We're very proud of the design and the look. We think they really embody the traditional home style that people want to live in. This is the entrance to a 2-bedroom cottage. This is a standalone unit. These are 2-bedroom twin townhouses. We actually took these out of our portfolio for this project in favor of the attached garage. Again, elevation of a 2-bedroom unit and a 1-bedroom unit elevation. We'll point out that dormer, it's not a faux dormer that you mostly see on a lot of new construction where they just put it there for accent. We vault all of our ceilings so that way when you walk in, our units sound smaller, but when you have a 15-foot ceiling, that space feels a lot bigger, has natural light, and so it's a lot more inviting inside. Example of one of the pocket parks that is throughout the community. Class A amenities, the pool deck with your lounge chairs in the pool, grill space, just a nighttime view of it. We thought that looked really cool. Grill stations. This is our clubhouse. This was the 1.0 version of our communities where we just had the one clubhouse. So this is one large clubhouse that has leasing. It has the lounge space, pool table, top of the line fitness center. Has that coffee house vibe. We provide coffee for our residents, so we invite them to come work in the space and commune with each other. Just pool tables, poker table, lounge, fitness area. Oh, sorry, that was probably too quick for you. Fitness area. And this is the interior of one of the residences. This is a 2-bedroom unit. As you can see, the 15-foot ceilings. We incorporate the smart technology in there. Our entrances will be app controlled. So a big concern with a lot of residential or multifamily communities is Airbnb going to show up in these communities? It cannot, because we can control access to who can have access to the communities. Our residents can give access to friends if they want, but if they start racking up all of a sudden 15 new accounts, we can shut that down quickly because we want to make sure that we have good quality residents and neighbors in there for the surrounding community. Nest thermostat, you can control your temperature from remotely, and dimmable, controllable lights. Example of the bathroom, shaker cabinets, quartz countertops, subway tile. The example of our kitchen, stainless steel appliances, again, shaker cabinet, the shaker cabinets and the quartz countertops. And then this is the biggest amenity that we have that all of our residents rave about, is they get a private backyard. This space is designed for them. In the southern climate, we have private fences that allow, and we use artificial turf with a concrete patio and river rock or a crushed slate in the background. Something that most apartment complexes or communities cannot have is a grill for every single resident. Every single one of our residents can have a grill in their backyard. If they want to have a small little fire pit, they can have that because of the fact that they have the outdoor space and fire code permits for them to have that space. Again, example of the pocket parks, we're dog friendly. And so we have the doggy bag stations throughout the community. And then why single family the single family residences. I'm going to jump to we have a bell bar, Robin was touching on it, of who lives in our communities. A big aspect of this are the younger generations that are just graduating college, in the workforce, getting up to their 30s. Home prices have skyrocketed. When I graduated college, they were affordable, kind of. Now they're not. Not many people have $50,000, $70,000 to put a down payment on a starter home. So we have a lot of young singles or young couples that are moving in that are tired of having those people on every wall of their home, and they want to have the feeling of having their own actual house. And then next, we have your young family or single parent. This is the smallest subset of our residences. They're usually the younger children, and it's the couple that kind of might have transitioned from that first single to being a couple, and before they're able to afford that initial home. And then the largest subset is going to be our empty nesters, mature singles, and active adults. We call them baby chasers lovingly because of David's mom wanting a place to be around the grandbabies. My parents are the same way. and they want to move to be close to their grandchildren. And so this gives them a place that they can go to, and it also allows them, if they want to go on vacation, they can lock and leave and have everything taken care of. As Robin touched on, we have valet trash service that goes around 6 days a week. A resident just puts their trash can on a little alcove next to their fence, and we have our maintenance staff goes around and picks it up, so you don't have that typical member of the community going around with a trash bag on the front of their car that might fall off. So we're really trying to maintain a very nice, clean residence, and the entire development is professionally managed. We have 24-hour staff. And one of the biggest things and draws that we find for communities is our retention rate. A typical garden-style apartment has a 50% turnover rate. So every 2 years, it's all new members in the community. Ours is 80%. So our residents are staying more like 5 years. And because of the housing issues going on throughout the country right now and the limited supply, we're really opening up more supply because people are moving out, accessing that equity. So it's opening up a for sale home, but it's keeping that residence in your community. They want to go to the same church. They want to go to the same pharmacy and same grocery store. So this is giving that access, and the people from out of town moving in, when they move in, they're becoming permanent residents. They're not moving out and going somewhere else. They're moving out to maybe buy a home, their permanent home. So I hope that wasn't too long, but happy to answer any questions.
I'm anticipating that your rent schedule is to be determined yet.
Yes, typically it's about, right now,
Checking the market.
yeah, it's all market rent. It's not, we do not do any low income. Right now, we're looking about $1,500 for a 1-bedroom and up to $2,500 for a 3-bedroom. However, it's going to be market based, which we will evaluate once we start opening the first units.
That
Is there any
includes
age up and
association?
down limit at all?
It is not age restricted. There's a lot of developers that are trying to make this age restricted. We find that people like to live with people of other ages. New parents, I know I'm looking to become a new parent. I'm going to have a lot of questions. And so having someone that might have had experience raising kids next door is a big bonus. And then also having that community, you can converse with different generations and have that connection.
And the other one you had already answered, it is pet friendly.
It is pet friendly to limits. We do have restrictions on what pets can be in the community, what size dogs and everything can be in the community we want to make sure that everything's safe.
Does the rent include association dues or, maintenance and all that?
Rent includes everything, all of the above. Yes. Their internet and electric will be their responsibility to pay that directly, but it's all master meter that's included for water, sewer that's included within the rent. Garbage pickup, everything like that, landscaping.
And the roads are private, correct?
Correct.
What about the water system? Is that owned by you, or is that?
The water inside the community, it will be owned by us, and it would be one master meter at the front of the community. If we're required to have two, we'll have 2 master meters, but it will be controlled by us and maintained by us.
And you're following fire department codes for
Yes.
fire hydrants and?
Yes, we'll have all minimum fire hydrants, minimum building distances. The clubhouse will be sprinklered because it is under the commercial code, but the rest of the buildings are not sprinklered as it's under the residential code.
One of the things that I like, just looking over the overall site plan, when you mentioned the streets, even in the internal streets, they're well sidewalked. Each of them has curb bump outs to make it sort of more appealing for pedestrians to walk around. And each one, as required by code, has sort of sidewalks that are concrete crossing those 2 bump outs. So it's a really sets it off as this is a pedestrian zone. And overall, the narrower street layout, I think the street is probably 24 feet from end to end, makes cars slow down as well. So they're really keen on keeping the cars slow and keeping the people walking around. So that's pretty cool.
Correct. We want to minimize road through traffic in our communities because we envision kids playing, grandkids playing. That's why we put so many parks in there, because we want people utilizing the space and feeling safe inside.
So on the streets, if there's on-street parking, what is left for travel? Can 2 cars still pass?
Yes,
With
absolutely.
parking.
Yes. We will we will abide to the code to make sure there's ample space. It's about 10 feet per lane, and then an additional 6 feet for your parallel parking. It's 13 feet for angled parking, I believe.
Great.
And we are that is the type of parking we're putting on the roadway that will be dividing our development from Racing Bible Church.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I guess my only question is about the parking, because many of your models don't have the garage. And like you presented in the south, the weather is different, but here, it's a different story. And, for example, when you look at the clubhouse, which is on one end of the development, and if you are renting a unit on the other side, you're not going to walk in the wintertime.
Certainly.
So what I'm looking for is that you're planning have adequate parking, not only for the renters, but also for the visitors.
The parking, the on-street parking is essentially auxiliary parking. A lot of the parking is going to consist, we have one in a garage, and then there's another spot in the driveway. That driveway spot we're not incorporating into our account.
Oh,
It's
okay.
They're actually over parked compared to our code. So our code requires, so for the 1 and 2 units, it requires 1 parking space per unit. For multifamily developments, it's 1.1, so that would be used for the cottage courts. They're coming in at 1.75, and that's not even including the, I'm gonna ballpark it at 180 spaces that are gonna be on the church road, as I'm calling it, between them and the church. Those spaces will be open, so I envision them being used for visitor parking as well as sort of overflow parking for the church. So they're definitely got that within the existing sort of street network, without making it look like a big parking lot, which I think is key.
including garage space and on-street parking. I believe we've actually gone up to 782 parking spaces.
Thank you.
Just a quick question in regards, Ed's here, I see. So any issues, Ed, in regards to getting trucks in and out of here?
Not so much about that, just a question on the water main.
Well, why don't you come on up?
Come up,
Yeah.
if you would mind.
And we also have our engineer here, so if you have any technical questions, I want to make sure that I can answer them correctly, not just guess for you.
Well, he's the guy who's gonna have to pass them up a lot.
Thank you, Scott.
Ed Lockhart, South Shore Fire Division, Chief Support Services, 658 Hunter Drive, Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin. Just noticed it's a 12-inch main feed off of Spring Street. Looks like it's 12 inches on each side of the development with 8-inch mains on the interior portions. Just a question on the southern feed, is that coming, looks like there's 2 lead-ins from the south side, but that is probably dumping out and connecting with the 12-inch to what would be Carrington Boulevard. I just want to make sure it's a totally loop system, because there's a lot of
Shaking his head.
lumber in there.
Yeah, we're working with the water utility, Ed. There will be the main service coming in, as well as then the service to provide the internal water for them, so.
Okay. Yeah, being a private system, we just want to make sure it's not just dead-end system coming in off Spring Street and then wrapping back out and, dumping back out on Spring, because that limits the water supply if one of the mains goes down or one of the laterals in the development go down. But I know we've got a good working relationship too with the city, so I'll start checking with them and asking them. But once everything's developed inside, as you guys know, being private, it'll be up to the owners to maintain all that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Well-
I give a little clarity. As Robin said, with us bringing water down V and connecting Carrington, we're having right now we have it designed to tap into the line in Carrington, but the roadways, the public roadways that we're installing on that L-shaped, see if I can go up. Sorry. Oh, In the southeast, that southeast corner, that L shape right there, we are putting the water utility around the development. So it's not going to just be us going through the development up there. The public waterway will be going around the development on that roadway. Very welcome.
So that'll also provide water to the future public park to the east, as well as development to the south if for their own looping purposes, or the southeast, there's additional land that's stated for residential development, so they'll be able to access that through connection fees and such.
All right, any other questions? Well, thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh, just a thing, the motion probably indicates that it goes to the village board. It does not. You guys are the approval body.
Correct. Speaking of motion, if there are no other questions, I'd be looking for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of the Leo Private Rental Residence SP 03-22 to the, subject to the recommended conditions for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further questions, comments?
Just that, just picking up on the fact that there's the verbal inclusion of condition number 3, dealing with the traffic
Thank you. I wrote it on my thing, but yes, the 3 conditions. Appreciate that. Thanks, Tom.
Again, second.
Second is good with it? Okay. Any other public comment on this? All right, then if there's no further questions or comments, we do have some questions or comments. You may?
Oh,
We are gonna hear from him. I was worried he was just sitting there. Thought we were gonna have to wake him up.
Randy Savaglio, member of the church. Question on security it's a real concern for our church. Besides did you say 24-hour?
Yeah, there is full-time staff. Sometimes they do live, a lot of times they do live in the community, but there is always someone that is on call 24/7. So if there's any issue, there's someone available immediately for any kind of incidents. And also a note with our application process is extensive. We have credit checks, we have background checks, and our residents to be able to afford it, to live in this place, usually have to have a decently higher income. So it's a pretty rigorous process before they're.
Yeah, I don't think the concern was necessarily for the residents. It's just there's going to be other traffic, people going in and out the park. Was there any consideration of a security system of drivers that go around like some developments are?
That's something we could look into. We do usually have cameras, at least around our clubhouse. But we don't put cameras just to allow our residents privacy. Since there's private backyards, we don't want to encroach into their privacy.
Okay.
But we have community leaders that they really monitor the neighborhood themselves as people. Something that we've been very proud of is the residents have started taking ownership in the community, more so than you'd see in a traditional apartment community. People are decorating their front porches and they're really out in the community. So it's not only our full-time staff, but the residents are overseeing the safety of
Thank
the
you.
neighbors.
And then just one last question on the term of the leases. Are they 1 year? Are there options to renew?
Year with renewal every year, yes.
Okay, so and is that built in to, as far as the rent is concerned, how much percentage of increase that might be?
Yes, it is. And if if I don't have an example lease agreement, then I'm happy to come back up and meet with
Okay.
share example lease agreements that our application process as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Just real quick, one of the things about security in parks, I always loved when, and I advocate for this a lot, on open spaces and parks and whatever, whenever houses front on those things, their eyes are on the park. And so this development has lots of homes and, whatnot fronting the park, and so they're looking and seeing what's going on. So those people are always just eyes on, and that is a really great thing for, you know, the security and safety of a park, which if it gets dark and lonely and no one's looking at it, like, you know, stuff could happen. So it's great that there's this many eyes plus the church on the park, so.
I think we welcome new concepts into the types of housing that we have in the community, so this is gonna be very interesting.
I just wanted to say briefly, I appreciate your explaining who you are, the people, the companies, because often we don't hear, you know, the background, so it's good to know who the actual corporate players are and the people involved, so I appreciated that part of it.
How long would a project like this take to complete?
Roughly 24 to 27 months. The biggest part of this is getting our infrastructure, site utilities, and roadways in first. I'm more accustomed to building in the south, but we are contracting with the local GC to partnering with them to really develop our schedule. First about 6 months are going to be that infrastructure, roadways, get binder course, the external roadways as well, and then we'll start going vertical with the units. It's about 14 months in that we will open the clubhouse first and about a block of 4 units, and then monthly we usually open about 4 units at a time. And obviously we have safety protocols in place to make sure that no one goes into those construction zones.
Are the units prefab or are they built individually?
They're stick built. They're built individually. The technology with construction is coming along greatly, and there is option for panelized systems, and something we looked into. The houses are designed where you can, if you've ever built a Habitat for Humanity house, a lot of times they put the whole panel together and they raise it up. So these are designed to be able to utilize those systems. However, they haven't been made to be as efficient as having framers out on the site.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion? Then I call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Nice.
Thank you, gentlemen. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. And so we have some ordinances. Hopefully you caught these at the end of this mammoth packet. There is about, 5 pages of just little tiny ordinances.
Yeah, nice.
And just a little time for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some printing issues. I do apologize, and we'll try to get it right next time. Whenever you try to print a 250-page PDF, computers start to go haywire.
So they did not recognize the whole page versus the half page.
Yeah, basically. So we'll go, so if we can get back, so we're back on the ordinance.
Ordinance 02-2022.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a zoning map amendment for 10017 Spring Street.
Correct.
ZMA 0222, for David Rindall. And it's in local area Plan 5. The applicant requested permission to zone from RL1 to RE in order to have a couple goats on the property. This section of the village, all of these lots were a toss-up. We basically decided to err on the side of caution and put them into RL1, even though they were over the size limit for RL1, but some of them are under the frontage requirement for RE. They were just really kind of the mullet of our zoning code, if you will. Just half one thing, half another. So if we explain to the applicant that this rezone would have additional ramifications on if they were to build an additional structure, or if they were to raise their house and build another one. The applicant accepted that and just wanted the sort of agricultural rights that an RE would acquire. So we are recommending approval.
Also, as a note, there's kind of a farm-style outbuilding on the property already. I believe there used to be some animals on the property. So that's the reason why the applicant purchased the property. They didn't realize there were some updated zoning rules about it. So yeah, it should be,
I don't.
not really a change in use or something new out there. They're allowed up to 2 goats per acre, so this one's allowed.
Yeah, we've also gotten
2 to 3 goats.
We've also gotten several like chicken coop requests in this area. You know, it has an agricultural history. It's just not, they're not make big farms or anything like that. It's just quasi agricultural.
Any questions of Robin on this?
Well, I'm gonna have to pass because I don't have it, so I'm not sure.
It did not make our packet.
This one didn't make the packet?
No.
I have nothing.
Okay, well, let me see what I can do about that. We can probably print out some and come back to it. It's not exactly very big. Let me see if I can, you want to see if you can?
I mean, this is the long and short of it.
I mean, yeah, here it is. right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
This is
there's
pretty
nothing
much-
else that you lost. There's no fiscal note or anything in the
This is
packet,
literally
so-
everything that's on the packet is on your screen.
Okay, so what is that road on the left?
Oh.
That's a railroad.
That's the railroad, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right, so if you go on the Fancher here and hang a left, it's right before you get to the railroad on your left, that series of homes there.
Got it.
And they all back out to, on the other side, that's Brzezinski farmland, I believe, on the other side of the railroad. So it's, that is what it is. Any other questions? So I didn't know that you guys didn't have this one.
No, that's all right. I thought I did, but I didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Ordinance 02-2022, a zoning map amendment for 10017 Spring Street, zoning map amendment application ZMA-02-22.
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, just a note for the public, both ZMA 01, that's the condo plat zoning map amendment, and this one will be at the February 28th Village Board meeting for a public hearing and final Village Board vote.
Okay, thank you. Feeling a little bush league today. Okay, we're,
Next is ordinance 09-2022.
yes, 2022 is correct.
Go ahead.
Yeah. We don't get in trouble for that, by the way. If you, for any kind of public notices or anything like that, if it's actually like a typo or, you know, a misnumber or whatever, that's kind of easily explainable, you don't get in trouble from the higher ups, so
But
to
what
speak.
about us? You might
Yeah, well, you guys get us every time, every single time, and you keep us honest. Thank you very much. So this is a amendment to the detached houses and 2-unit houses ordinance. It is an addition of one line. Is at the end of the code. It's basically a subnote. We hate to put more and more subnotes because the old code had subnotes that went way down, but we couldn't really figure out how to do this otherwise. Duplexes or 2-unit houses may increase the maximum lot width or area of a single lot by 50% in RL2, RM, and R8 zones. So what we had kind of found is that this code with its maximums, you could do 1 or 2 units, but they had the same minimums and maximums. And so 1 unit could have 60 feet, but 2 units were also limited to 60 feet. So we thought that that was kind of unfair. If you had 1 unit on one lot and then 1 unit on the next door lot, they'd get 120 feet of space. But 2 units on one lot, they have to be constrained to 60 feet. Now, there is administrative adjustments, but that only bumps things up by 15% at tops. So we decided to meet it in the middle to say that in a duplex or 2-unit structure as designed could have a lot size of 50% or a lot width of 50% larger. So that's halfway in the middle, and still kind of could accommodate it. The reason was for this is sort of the design of The Leo group, some of the duplexes were really wide because of the garages. So we decided to put this together and get that done. Any questions? So basically, if you have 2 units, you get a 50% bonus.
What's that do to your road repaving number?
I mean, if we were getting 2 units every 90 feet, I would jump for joy. So this only applies to the RL2, RM, and RH districts. It does not apply to the RL1 district, which can go up to a maximum of 1 acre or 120 feet.
So without this, they can't build what they were planning now, then, right, Leo?
Mostly, yeah. They would have to get a variance.
Okay.
And that's only because or they could rezone. If they rezoned that property to, or at least portions of the property to RL1, that would do that as well. But currently the property is RM2, which has a stricter standard for single and 2-family lots.
Do we have a motion here?
Make a motion to amend the Code of Ordinance, the Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, Section 90-110.90, detached houses and 2-unit houses, Ordinance 09-2022.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Oh, just as an aside, we actually have that sort of language for the maximum lot sizes and widths for multi-units, so over 3, but we didn't have it for 1 or 2. So it just kind of matches and mirrors that. It was kind of a whole.
Okay, then next will be Ordinance 10, 2022, amending the Code of Ordinances for parking, layout, and design.
Yeah, so this one's a fun one. We got an inquiry for truck parking, which I know we all love. And I looked at the code and I realized that as written, and I consulted the village attorney, as written, the code parking ordinance does not allow a layout that accommodates the semis. Like if you wanted to do a parking lot of spaces for semis, you couldn't do it. They would have to be sized in a way to be a standard automobile. And so if you wanted to stripe a parking lot correctly for a semi, we don't think it was available or legal at all. And so I drafted a fix for it. And this fix also sort of it fixes other things that we felt that were at issue with the truck parking ordinance that we have talked about before. So it says that, and this also gives you guys a choice, by the way, so pay attention. If a development plan wishes to alter the parking space layout requirements outlined in 90-420.100 C and D to allow for on-site large vehicle and semi-tractor truck and trailer parking, approval can be granted under option 1 is for conditional uses via the Plan Commission, which is y'all. Or option 2, Division 90-565, which is administrative adjustments, which is us. And both of those will have the same conditions, but it's just whatever you guys are comfortable with, whether you want to give that to staff approval or for Plan Commission approval. And the conditions are the same either way. So these are the conditions. 1, each tractor trailer space shall count towards the landscape requirements as a directly sized proportional number of standard spaces, rounded to the next whole space. This does not apply to active loading areas of an approved building or at fueling stations at a truck stop. Basically, that mentions what we mentioned a bit ago, that a tractor trailer truck space is approximately 4 standard spaces. So it will have to meet the landscape requirements of 4 standard spaces. Obviously, this is very strict, but staff feels that you guys don't necessarily want a whole lot more tractor trailer parking lots in the village, and we heard you, and this is our thoughts on that. So 2, an approved use of a tractor trailer or heavy truck non-accessory parking must have a taxable primary structure on the property that meets a 10% lot coverage ratio. basically you can't have a raw parking lot with no building on it.
Question.
Yeah.
Is this condition meant to increase the taxable revenues on the property, or is it just meant
Yes.
to change the aesthetics of the property?
Number one.
Okay, number one. Then it seems to me you're setting a pretty low bar because all you're requiring is a structure. I mean, that could be nothing more than a shack. That could be,
I mean, it would have to meet building code and stuff, but
but I could just envision they would just have like a canopy, something like a truck port
Well-
version of a carport, and that's not gonna add much tax base.
yeah, I agree, but such a structure would go in front of review between us or you guys, and we would be able to see that out because of that and another clause that I'm getting to later. But the point is, a 10% lot coverage, that is about the lot coverage of the Toyota dealership out by the highway, as far as that building to parking lot ratio. And those are taxed pretty high. So I agree with you, but it's way more than what's required right now, which is nothing. So, any other questions on that point?
But without doing this, there wouldn't be any more truck parking lots.
Correct, but this is kind of to provide an outlet so we don't get sued.
Why would you get sued if we don't allow truck parking lots? There's no right to have truck parking lot usage.
Sam, do you want to try another one? I'm trying to think.
So generally, it's our practice that if it's a legal business, that we have an outlet for that somewhere in our zoning code. So whether that's, sexually explicit businesses is the most common example of, you got to find a place for them. And we try our best to do that within the standards of the village. To other types of uses, we've seen a fair amount of interest in truck trailer parking. So we understand also that there's somewhat of a need for it with all the warehousing buildings along the I-94 corridor. It's not necessarily surprising that people are
But
asking
Sam,
for
I'd
it.
rather have the warehouse in Mount Pleasant and the truck parking lot in Kenosha than the way it's working out now, which is the warehouses in Kenosha and all the trucks get parked in Mount Pleasant.
This will correct that.
I mean, I would expect that these rules are strict enough that only very few people would want to build truck trailer parking. But this will also apply to those trailer parking areas on new business park parcels that are developed, which often have a truck court for more long-term parking as well as the existing loading areas. So, I see where you're coming from. I think this will accomplish that through not outright banning it, but setting some these gotta be the most strict standards south of at least Milwaukee County, for truck trailer parking.
Yeah, 10% of the property as a building, that's
Well, and
substantial.
that's basically a tree per truck parking spot. Oftentimes, these are 300 spot parking lots, so we're asking someone to install 300 trees for a parking lot. I mean, aesthetically, I think it's the right choice, and for the value and the values that you all have set, that's why we're proposing it, is we're cracking down on just bare pavement parking areas, whether it's stormwater reasons, value reasons, aesthetic reasons. We want, through you and the village board, the I-94 corridor to look better, but still accommodate some of these uses. So this is us trying to cut that or make those compromises, add some value to these properties without banning them out.
Yeah, and exempting the loading areas and fueling stations and stuff like that, so you still get your quick trips, that's fine. You still get your large industrial buildings like an HSA and stuff like that. That's what this kind of is designed for. We want those uses. Those are, high value, that create jobs, they strengthen our tax base. So we saw that kind of, hole or whatever, or I guess fortuitous hole, I don't know. But we decided that there should be some sort of outlet, and if they decide that they don't want to play that ball, then that's okay. But we do want to kind of accommodate if there are some legitimate reasons to have it, such as like if, you know, if a large Amazon facility wanted to show up or whatever. I know they went over to Yorkville, but whatever. That they could have some place for long stored truck parking, but they would have to accommodate these rules.
I'm assuming by leaving it vague, primary structure, you have the last say no matter what as to the size of the structure that.
Well, the size has to be 10% of the lot area, but what that primary structure is or primary use is can be a lot of different things, where it's a warehouse facility or it's a sales lot or a coffee shop, you know, whatever. So that's what that is designed for. And then the last one is that new non-accessory tractor trailer or heavy truck parking uses shall not be approved within a tax increment district, TID. That's straightforward. And we have kind of hammered the fiscal responsibility thing. When you put something that's a low tax value inside a tax increment district, you're hurting yourself 3 times. And you have to make up that value somewhere else. So we want to be more strict about those uses inside of TID. When you guys think of it, you guys get to decide whether it's you or us that determines this.
Question on regards to that, though. You just, if it's in a TID and a big company comes in and puts a big building on there, how do you handle that then? I mean,
Well, it says new non-accessory tractor trailer parking. So that is basically a truck parking lot.
Okay.
That the primary use is truck parking. So like if on the second point, it says if the primary use is truck parking lot, you have to have a building for staff for truck parking or something else there.
Isn't that redundant? Isn't 2 and 3 should be 1? It should just be one complete one then? Because you can't have a non-accessory truck trailer parking lot because in 2 it doesn't allow it.
No. So in 2, it allows it if there's a building on the property, a taxable building on the property.
Yeah.
And 3, it just does not allow any of that in a TID.
But if
Are we
but
primarily
you're
looking-
saying it's a non-accessory tractor trailer, well, if it's a non-accessory building, it's not allowed anyway. So whether it's in a TID or if it's in anywhere, it's not allowed.
I think
Am I missing something?
the way we're seeing these lots come in is they might have like the function and what the user makes money on is the leasing truck parking spaces. They might have a small maintenance shop or something in the corner, but the primary use of the property is for truck trailer parking, as opposed to someone who's coming in with a building and trying to run like a maintenance business or something. Oftentimes those have a lot less accessory parking. They might have some. You look at, you know, the one up in Caledonia along the interstate has a decent amount of truck parking, but it's not to the scale of like Rybar's operation where you have just, you know, particularly like semi-trailers that are parked even without cabs attached to them for long periods of time or even short periods of time. So those are how we're trying to separate those uses. I get the wording is a little bit weird because there's kind of that, as you pointed out, a little bit of a gray area in the middle there, but really we're trying to qualify it as like uses like Rybar. They're great that they snuck in, but we want to try to limit those in the future, particularly within TIDs. And they have to provide some value. Uses that are coming in that are primary uses with some accessory truck parking related to that primary use have to meet some landscaping standards, but they're in general fine. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's where, hopefully that makes sense. And we can certainly take a look at it. If you guys are, you know, largely fine with this, the concept, we can try to fine tune this language a little bit before it reaches the village board, just to make that absolutely clear.
Well, speaking for myself, I can say I'm not comfortable with it. I think there's not enough impediments, regulation, discouragement, I don't know what word I want, but I don't think this is going to stop the big truck parking lots. I think there could be more conditions. I think there could be more specificity. You can't park for long periods, or you just can't park the trailers. I just think more thought and more conditions should be placed on this than this approach.
I just want to interject. Sorry. the landscape code almost does it by itself right now. When we had the sort of inquiries about a truck parking over on the Hints lands up north, the landscape code almost did them in single-handedly. And that's the old landscape code, which counted one space as one space. This one would count every tractor trailer space as 4. So I think that makes it's pretty much the strictest I can think of for that type of use. And now we're requiring a building, some sort of taxable building on the structure. I think that's pretty intense considering where were we at, 6 months ago or so.
What would we call right now the open new stone parking lot immediately at the frontage road and the Sorensen Road? It's empty right now, but they're starting to have stuff go in there.
Not finished. They don't have a certificate of occupancy.
Oh.
That needs to be paved. So if that's the case, I need to make a call.
Because, they...
Submit a municipal complaint, John. That's your answer. Seriously.
I don't live out there anymore, but
No,
I'm still
it
concerned.
doesn't matter. They don't have a certificate of occupancy, so that's the long and short of it.
Yeah.
But I think to add a little bit of mustard on Robin's point, the real kicker is the interior parking lot landscaping standards, which say we have to have interior parking lot landscaping, not just around the edges of these truck parking areas, which truck parking does not like because they get hit all the time because people who park these will back into them. And so that by default makes it very difficult for them to landscape the interior of these lots. I think it's feasible. I think a creative landscape architect could totally do it with a good site civil engineer. It's just not what they want to do. So I think that is just a real big rub. It doesn't ban it outright, but it is, none of them are going to want to deal with it because that's what they've complained to us about that stuff before.
Pretty much everything right now south of the Honda dealer to the Sorensen Road is truck, trailer,
Yeah,
semi
that's all.
parking.
Yeah, they got in kind of pre-zoning code though, so that was a little bit of a, you deal with what you got at the time you got it. But
And Tom, if you'd be more comfortable, we can decide where it's gonna go, as a conditional use through us or an administrative approval through the staff. So if you could add that in, if you wanted to make a motion, you could make that. They give you another kick at it, if you will.
Well, that would be my preference, to have it come back to commission. I just think it adds a little bit more, it's one more hurdle for the applicant, and I think maybe they take it a little bit more seriously, because not only do they have to deal with you gentlemen, but they know they have to come here, and they probably know this isn't going to be the most receptive of audiences for another
Exactly.
lot.
So it was basically bouncing, so whether or not, we're at 350 right now, everything that's at your, feet could require more time out of you guys or at ours. Either way, the conditions are the same. So that's why we laid it out. And I would play it safe and think that the safer way is to go through a conditional use. But I just laid another path out.
Yep.
that not only goes through you, but requires public hearing, public notice, and village board approval too. So, you're limited in denying them if they meet all the conditions, but you can certainly take into account substantive evidence in a public hearing and things like that. So, if that's your true goal, I agree with Robin.
Well, if it goes through us, we'd also have a kick at the architecture of the building as well, correct?
Yep.
So I like that. I like that approach.
Then it seems a pretty consensus there. We would recommend the conditional use variation, and we'll clean up the language to basically suggest that that's what the process is going to use in order to do it. And because of the change in the conditional use law, whenever we use it, we have to spell out this very specific conditions, and we feel that these conditions are very specific in order to give them teeth, if you will.
All right. Any other questions for that, or are you ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to amend the Code of Ordinance, Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, Section 90-420.100, parking layout and design. Ordinance 1022 with requiring the Division 90-55 conditional uses via Plan Commission.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? Nay.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. No, 5-1. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is ordinance 11-2022.
And thanks for accommodating that, like, wiggle room there where we said you can take it one way or the other.
Yep.
So this next ordinance is for Section 90-500, Administration and Procedures. This is basically the general chapter that deals with how we do what we're doing right here today, and how everything gets processed through permit and plan review. So the first change is basically in adding a clause to the purpose of the Plan Commission, which basically is an overall thing that you need to be kind of keeping in mind while reviewing plans and whatnot. We actually think you already do this already, but we wanted to spell it out. And that says, Purpose Clause E, ensure the fiscal health, stability, and security of the village in regards to the potential tax base increase or decrease from the proposed development in comparison to the village's financial obligations through development agreements or assumed future maintenance responsibilities. When the proposed development is in a tax increment district, TID, this review can include meeting TID projections or financial obligations. So basically that means a point of review for this board, this body, is the fiscal viability of a project.
Great.
And for the TID specifically, that it meets TID projections and goals. So if somebody were to come in with a, say even before this, a truck parking in a TID, and it was 90 acres of the TID, and that would cause the whole thing not to meet projections, this would sort of give you a purpose backing in order to deny that application. It essentially gives you a little bit more power, or probably not that gives you the same amount of power that you have, but it gives you a justification for saying no.
Yeah. That's good.
That is good.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to hammer home the financial stuff, and I think this helps.
But I guess my question here is that it also handcuffs us as well, because we don't have any say in those obligations that another group has given to a developer, and yet we have to meet some requirement of that. For instance, if we're requiring that they must meet the paving program thing that you've been working on, trying to make sure that and so you put the onus on us, say, well, we have to change something in order for them to get more tax base out of that parcel. Well, we didn't make that decision. We didn't arbitrarily put that problem in front of us, but now we have to meet something that was given by somebody else, another body. And that's why I'm a little...
Welcome to our jobs, Joe.
Well,
we don't.
but that's what it's saying, right?
Truly, the village board set those standards, and we all have to live with them. When they're apportioning the budget every year, and this isn't just roads, which we've been hammering on, but it's the utility budgets, stormwater. It's the Racine water utility budget, which we're only ancillary related to.
Mm-hmm.
It's also our operations expenses that we're continuously trying to model into these. So fire, PD costs, public works costs, that's 75% of the village budget right there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But
I guess it's.
But to kind of I think you were getting at another thing is that I don't believe it handcuffs the Plan Commission to only consider financial obligations. Mm-hmm. For example, sort of ordinance, quality, and character of the development of property in the village. So a school were to want to come in. A school is a tax exempt property, but that promotes, the welfare of the village. You know, that's actually an improvement. And so you weigh it against each other. It's like, okay, this is overall a net benefit. No matter what the numbers say, this is a benefit. But it says that you can analyze a property on, a fiscal basis if you so choose. And that's sort of why it's in the purpose statement and not a specific, every property has to meet X, Y, Z parameter. And I did not want to do that because that gets a little ridiculous, honestly. It's just something to keep in mind as we review things.
Yeah, because it says can.
Yes.
It doesn't say shall.
Yes.
So we can use that as a reason. We don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the second part of this is administration and procedures. It's authorized administrative adjustments and the review criteria and standards. And this is an adding of an adjustment and as well as a focusing of what the adjustments can do. I think this was a little bit inspired for several reasons, but the recent sort of Eaton Lane proposal, as far as what administrative adjustments could do in a situation like that. So what is added is that the side and rear setbacks, instead of being just a reduction in the minimum, it's a modification. So it can reduce the minimum or modify the maximum by 15%. The rate is the same. The same thing with lot width and lot frontage. It changes from just the minimum to a modification of the maximum. And it also adds lot area to that equation. So it's always just, it's 15%. So on a lot that required, if it requires a maximum of 100 feet and they wanted to do 115 feet, they can apply to SAM and say, can we do 115 feet? As opposed to going through a variance hearing and all that sort of stuff. And variance hearings, you shouldn't, they're basically tell everybody to deny it if basically their reason is because I want to. This is a very small threshold that has certain criteria that we review to see whether it goes in or out. And most of the time these things are like spare lots or random lots that don't quite fit in a particular standard, and so that gets adjusted. Then adding to the review criteria. So every one of these administrative adjustments has criteria which staff reviews. Well, Sam reviews because he alone has the power to make these adjustments. You have the power. And this is a limiting factor. And it says E, if part of a larger development, the requested administrative adjustments will not bring the overall average buildings or lots out of compliance with established minimums or maximums of the zoning district. So and we thought this was pretty reasonable, with say the Eaton Lane proposal where there was 3 buildings. And if they requested an administrative adjustment on the height of each building, that affectionately takes it up another zoning code or another zoning level. And we thought that we don't want to be put in a position where we're asked to do that. This is supposed to be to kind of round the corners, not to kind of skirt the rules. And so we felt that putting this clause in there would contain Sam's extraordinary power. Because right now he has an infinity gauntlet of 15% adjustments.
15%. Yeah, this is just part of us continuously wanting to pose the question to you all, particularly with the previous ordinance and this one, of be continuously self-reflective over what are the powers that you're delegating the staff, what are the powers you're holding onto yourself, and what are the powers that you're inheriting from the village board. So, it makes all of our jobs easier when those are clearly defined. And when we start to game plan and game theory stuff of, they could get around this way, not have to go to the plan commission, even though they should, that certainly makes us uncomfortable. So close those loops before they become a problem.
Most or all of these adjustments are to promote, business and
Yeah, the
development.
idea is to make a project happen that just needs a
Right.
minimum amount of relief. The classic example for all of these is related to height. If you have a Tudor-style house with extremely steep pitched roofs, and you need an extra 15% to have your garage match that style, then, you know, I can say, that's a very reasonable request. You don't need a formal variance just to match your roof style to your house.
Yep.
So that's kind of what we're thinking here. This is particularly related to lot size, but same type of thing, you know, you have a creek in your backyard and you can't have the depth, so you want a little bit extra width. That's the stuff we can say, that's reasonable. You don't need to prove a variance for such a small request.
Not everybody's gonna put an observatory on top of their house.
Yeah, this little clause also prevents, so when we were talking about the zoning code with Duncan Associates and talked about like, minimums and maximums or whatever, the sort of thing is, well, if you have the power to adjust it at the stat level, does that become the new minimum or maximum? Like, it's the de facto. And having a clause like this means that, no, it's not. It's for sort of a special consideration and not a default. So we thought that was good. And I totally missed, instead of saying infinity gauntlet, it should have been 15% gauntlet. Like,
I got what you meant.
Yeah. I'm silly. It's 4 o'clock.
All right.
We've been
All
here a
right,
while.
at 4 o'clock, are there any further questions? Otherwise, a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve ordinance 11-2022, adopting the Code of Ordinances, Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, Section 90-500, Administration and Procedures.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Now I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. George.
George is not here. He's got nothing.
Okay.
He says none on there.
I have
But I saw
some,
him here and I thought maybe there was
Yeah.
something.
I have some sign permits and municipal complaints, but not really enough to kind of, delay us or anything. So I'm just going to postpone them until next month. And
We're not giving you extra time next month, though.
Yeah, I mean,
Same time.
yeah.
Okay.
I hope it'll be shorter next month. And then Sam.
You will know if we get up and walk out.
Yeah, we haven't received as many applications for next month, so these are all delayed because of the holiday, so it should be back to normal. But just a reminder that the Wisconsin State Planning Conference is from May 24th to 26th. If any of you would like to attend, just let us know, and we have some professional development money set aside to do so. So let us know if you'd like to attend. It's in Green Bay, where it was postponed last time.
The last 2 times.
The last 2 times, yes. So it's finally back in person this spring. Please let us know if you'd like to attend. We'll be there.
Are you submitting anything?
Yes, we are. We will hopefully, if we are approved, be presenting a thing on our new zoning code. So
Great.
we will, if you don't come, we can give you the presentation, even though you're the ones who sat through it for like a couple of years, but.
Our award-winning zoning.
Yes, our
Right.
award-winning zoning code. So, yes, that's the plan. If you'd like to attend, please let me know.
And the next meeting is when?
Next meeting is March
23rd.
23rd, correct.
Unless you
I did not move it.
All right. Any other motions?
Move for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We are adjourned.